Global evolution. I transplanted the heart of the Supreme God. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276. Very insecure. Cloud Palace, in the same quiet room. It was the first time that Bai Pu saw the goddess of Wushan. Compared with the goddess of Wushan in the video, the real person had a stronger aura, which gave Bai Pu a sense of oppression similar to that of Taizong. Obviously, the goddess of Wushan was also a top figure among the high-level awakeners. And this sense of oppression, combined with the beautiful appearance and explosive figure of the goddess of Wushan, raised the temptation to men to the extreme, making people naturally have a desire to conquer. Bai Pu was not too embarrassed. He had always had good self-control in this regard. As early as the trial stage before he became an awakener, he had been affirmed by Qin. Congratulations, you have been recruited. The goddess of Wushan smiled. I heard King Guyan say that, you mentioned that the ticket can carry 2 people, and you don't have any teammates you can trust. Bai Pu nodded slightly. Just based on the 4 words matrix plane, any force that knows the inside story will ask you to bring their descendants at all costs. The goddess of Wushan said leisurely, you are into official organizations, the Shenzhou Army and the Special Service Bureau. It is not difficult for you to find teammates. And you specifically mentioned this to King Guyan. In fact, you are willing to take her with you, right? Bai Pu's eyes drifted to the window. Senior, do you know why I rejected your last gift? At the time, I thought you probably didn't want to team up with King Guyan. The goddess of Wushan said, combined with your performance in the group stage, it is possible that you look down on King Guyan's potential. The main reason is that the exploration of the spirit world is full of uncertainties, and I can't guarantee her safety. If something happens to her, how should I explain to the Wu family of Donghae? Bai Pu said, I was originally an abandoned child forgotten by the times. Everything I have now is earned. I also enjoy the process of challenging difficult tasks. Even if I die in a difficult spirit world, I will have no regrets. Having a teammate by my side will make me feel restrained in my exploration of the spirit world. I don't want teammates. It's because I don't want to be relied on by my teammates, and I don't want this kind of reliance to eventually turn into disappointment, and friends become strangers. The goddess of Wushan listened carefully to Bai Pu's self-narration, and a trace of sympathy flashed in her slender phoenix eyes. Excuse me, from your self-narration, I feel that you lack a sense of security. You don't want to be hurt by close friends, and you even reject the presence of friends. You just want to keep a distance from everyone. This is not your fault, after all, it is related to your growth experience. The goddess of Wushan conducted a detailed investigation on Bai Pu, so she could understand Bai Pu's mood at this time. Looking at the handsome Bai Pu, the bared maternal instinct of the goddess of Wushan was aroused, but she didn't know how to comfort Bai Pu, so she could only say self-deprecatingly, although I am more than 10 years older than you, I am your elder. But I have been devoted to cultivation, and I have never even been in love. I really lack the experience of counseling others. As for asking a psychologist to counsel, it's difficult, because the awakened and ordinary people are already people from 2 different worlds. It's difficult for ordinary psychologists to make the awakened empathize, let alone accept the psychological treatment of ordinary people. Bai Pu just confessed his heart not, and now he is a lot more relaxed. He regained his normal demeanor, looked into the eyes of the goddess of Wushan, and said seriously, so, I won't become a permanent teammate with anyone, just like last time, just a temporary team. The reason why I didn't take the initiative to invite her is mainly because this time going to the world of original sin is extremely dangerous, probably no less than the advanced area Starfall Islands she entered when she did the trial mission last time. The goddess of Wushan was silent for a while. For an intermediate awakener, entering the advanced area, she knows the danger best. The last time Blood Spider did the job transfer mission, he used a powerful prop and almost lost half of his life. Bai Pu continued, so this time, it's up to you to choose. Then, Bai Pu stood up and said, why don't you go back and discuss it with Blood Spider? My ticket is still valid for more than 10 hours. From this angle, he could clearly see the tall white neckline of the goddess of Wushan, as well as her deep cleavage. Bai Pu instinctively glanced at her and looked away. No need to discuss. The goddess of Wushan adjusted her collar, her cheeks flushed, And she also stood up and said with a smile, "Before I came here, I had already asked Kingayan. She said that she was willing to pay any price to catch up with you." After a pause, the goddess of Wushan said, "Considering your mental state, this time we will still use the transaction method. I am very grateful that you are willing to leave this opportunity to Kingayan. Here is a skill book, please accept it." Obviously, Blood Spider has been paying attention to Bai Pu and knows that he has been collecting rare skill books recently. Bai Pu did not hesitate to take the book. Skin of Steel, 3-star skill. Passive, increase your natural armor. Actively open the iron skin, so that you can get a fixed amount of physical damage reduction and immunity to bleeding effects. This is a skilled book that is very suitable for MT. It has the same nature as Unstable Shield, and is calculated based on Bai Pu's endurance attribute. After Bai Pu got it, he found that his success rate in comprehending the skill was as high as 77%. This success rate is already very high. You must know that Bai Pu is not in perfect condition now. Moreover, the success rate of the previous book 3 Worlds he comprehended was only 80%. According to the law, the success rate of comprehending the next skill will be reduced to about 60%. The 17% higher success rate now must be due to the high degree of fit. The goddess of Wushan took out another scroll and smiled. "In order to ensure your safety on this trip, please give this item to Blood Spider and let her use it at the critical moment." Bai Pu took it and read the instructions. Leopard Grace, a level silver item. After use, it will open the Swift Leopard field, which will increase the agility of all friendly forces in the area by 25 points and double the movement speed. Any deceleration effect with a priority lower than 9 cannot reduce the beneficiary's movement speed below the normal value. Usage requirement, agility 100 points. Is this the legendary high-powered item? Bai Pu was really enlightened. High-powered items are a general term circulated among awakened people, and are not stipulated by the will of the spirit world. Generally speaking, high-powered items have common characteristics. First, they are effective. Second, they require a high usage. This high-powered item, the Leopard's Grace scroll, requires 100 points of agility to use, which Bai Pu definitely cannot use. Blood Spider can use it, but it has to activate some equipment that temporarily increases agility to barely reach the required level. Chapter 277, Zundu is fake? After the appointment, Bai Pu did not stay at the junction of Yunzhong for too long. He returned to the dormitory area of Zhejiang University, found Zuzu, and handed her the Leopard's Grace item. Zuzu was a little afraid to look into Bai Pu's eyes and lowered her head, but the joy and excitement was reflected in her obviously lighter footsteps. Bai Pu was naturally cement-sealed. He went to the dormitory to sleep first, intending to adjust his condition to the best, and then comprehend the newly acquired 3-star skill, Skin of Steel. Zuzu went to report to the organizer and also helped Bai Pu apply because he was recruited. Now, new gossip has spread on the networks of major universities. Did you know? Gangxin from Xi'an Polytechnic University was also recruited. What a lie. It's been so many days, why was he recruited just now? I suspect he couldn't save face, so he got a ticket to the spirit world to avoid it, and pretended that he was recruited by the will of the spirit world. Even if it's true, Gangxin is probably the last intermediate awakener to be recruited. Compared with our school's boss, the difference is 5 days. There's no need to say more about the difference between him and the boss. I can only say that those who understand will understand. Zhejiang University, dormitory area. Bian Chang Langzi and Lan Feng met several people from Xi'an Polytechnic University. Hey, I heard that Gangxin from your team was also recruited. Is it true? Bian Chang Langzi laughed. Of course it's true. A normal-faced man rushed to say. Lan Feng ignored the answer of the ordinary-faced man and looked at Zuzu. Did you just submit the application for Gangxin and yourself? We have also known each other since childhood. There is no need for you to lie about this matter. I will not laugh at you. First, you and I have known each other since childhood, but we are not friends. Second, whether this matter is true or false has nothing to do with you. Zuzu said lightly. Then let's talk about it when the spirit world is transferred. Maybe I can meet you in the world of original sin. Lan Feng and Bian Chang Langzi's faces were obviously unconvinced. This is no wonder, because the awakened people who are eligible for conscription have been confirmed to be conscripted at least 3 days ago. The note of Bai Pu's conscription is somewhat strange. He is the only one who has been conscripted in the past 3 days, and it is inevitable that people will have malicious speculation. In fact, even the team of Zili University of Technology is not sure whether Bai Pu and Zuzu are lying. After all, no one except Bai Pu has seen Bai Pu's anchor seed of suffering. After Bai Pu woke up, he also heard the rumors on the internet and the suspicion of Bian Chang Langzi and the two. But now he could take it easy. He first took out the skilled book and comprehended it. In Bai Pu's mind, a solid figure appeared, covered with a layer of shiny ointment, constantly hitting himself with a wooden stick, an iron rod, and even a barbed mace. In the end, the body shone with a diamond-like luster, like steel that had been hammered 1,000 times. In an instant, Bai Pu received a prompt: "You have comprehended the skill, Skin of Steel, level 2, 3-star skill. Passive, you gain 18 points of natural armor. Actively activating Skin of Steel can give you 9 points of fixed physical damage reduction. Active effect cooldown time 5 minutes. Tip: fixed damage reduction takes effect after calculating the percentage damage reduction, including armor and equipment enhanced damage reduction ability. When a single damage does not exceed 9 points, you will not be harmed." Bai Pu silently calculated that after he now holds the Dark Gold Tower Shield, Vigilance of the Spider Queen, his endurance attribute has reached 90 points. Then the 18 points of armor he gains should be 20% of his stamina, considering that the current skill level is level 2, limit breaker +1, the armor increased by each level should be 10% of the total stamina, that is, 9 points of armor. And the fixed damage reduction should be 5% of the total stamina for each level. Then this skill will be very powerful when it reaches the middle and high levels. If it reaches level 5, Bai Pu can get 45 points of armor, and 22.5 physical damage reduction when the active effect is turned on. When it reaches level 10, it will get 90 points of armor and 45 points of physical damage reduction. This is without considering the skill special effects extraction of levels 4, 7 and 10. Bai Pu is very satisfied with his 3-star skill, especially after he comprehended the skill and knew how to accumulate proficiency in the skill. He was even more satisfied. Skin of Steel: as long as you get eaten, you can improve your proficiency. With a special alchemical ointment, the improved proficiency will increase significantly. From the skill knowledge he received, Bai Pu knew the recipe for making alchemical ointment. Low-level ointment is easy to make, especially for Bai Pu, a Taoist alchemist. Bai Pu called Li Ling and asked her to help him purchase a batch of materials as soon as possible, and then send them to Zhejiang through the official border. The network of hundreds of high-level female awakeners in Li Ling's address book played a role. She used the whole year's anti-aging cream as bait, and in just 2 hours, she had the raw materials for the low-level ointment. When Bai Pu got the raw materials and started to refine them, he couldn't help but sigh. This is the role of connections. If you only have psychic points but no connections, sometimes you can't get things done even if you spend double the money. After making preparations, Bai Pu and Blood Spider prepared to enter the world of original sin. The anchor of the world of original sin, the seed of suffering, has a special way of use. It requires the awakened to feel the pain to complete the psychic resonance and use it. The way to feel the pain is, hold it tightly. Bai Pu held Blood Spider's palm with his left hand and felt that she was a little nervous and her palm was sweaty. Bai Pu did not comfort her, but directly held the seed of suffering with his right hand. The barbs of the seed of suffering pierced into Bai Pu's palm inch by inch, and strands of blood flowed out. In an instant, white light emerged, and Bai Pu and the Blood Spider were wrapped in the light. The figures of the two gradually faded and disappeared. After the light dissipated and the feeling of weightlessness passed, Bai Pu and the Blood Spider stepped on solid land at the same time. Why didn't I enter the previous matching stage? Bai Pu was slightly stunned. This reminded him of the spiritual world transmission mode before the spiritual world war when the rules had not changed. I originally thought that before entering the world of original sin, I could see which teams there were. In addition to the awakened people of China, would there be foreign awakened geniuses, or even geniuses from other planets and other civilizations entering together? For example, the octopus had I met last time, the candidate of the Stylen Star, Meshet. Meshet is powerful, and Bai Pu was always suppressed by him before he changed his job. If the Blood Mist Butcher had not been brought in to disrupt the situation in advance, the consequences would be unpredictable. Even if it was the Blood Mist Butcher, Meshet could fight it back and forth. This was when most of Mashit's skills were used on Bai Pu. Now that Bai Pu's strength had greatly increased, he really wanted to compete with Mashit again. Chapter 278, The Legend of Our Lady of Thorns. You have entered the world of original sin. Do you want to spend 360 energy points to temporarily obtain the universal language translation function of this plane? Bai Pu narrowed his eyes. From these two prompts alone, he tasted a different taste. He and Blood Spider both chose yes. Blood Spider said, I remember that the previous entry prompts all said welcome to XX's plane world, and every time you enter a world, you can spend energy points to obtain the language of this plane, and your appearance and clothing will also be adjusted, so as not to arouse the suspicion of the natives. This time, it seems to be different. Maybe this is the peculiarity of the Matrix plane. Do you feel that this plane does not seem to be under the jurisdiction of the spirit world? That's why the spirit world will not say welcome to or something like that. Blood Spider nodded, a little excited and a little nervous. World of Original Sin, time, the end of the Third Age, region, Original Sin continent, strength. 3.6, background, everyone is born with original sin. The first person who embraced suffering, bled dry in the thorns, and was blessed by God, was the Holy Mother of Thorns. Some lucky imitators gained strength from suffering. The Church of Thorns was established, and the holy war to unify the continent's faith began, but the Thorn Slayers would never surrender. Bai Pu scanned the prompts of the spirit world's will, focused on the background, and then looked around to observe the environment of the world of original sin. The environment here is a bit like the world of inner demons. The depressing and dull feeling in people's hearts has been magnified tenfold. The gray clouds in the sky render the sun pale white, just like the sun in winter, pale and powerless. Main quest step 1, cutting through thorns. Quest objective, kill 10 thorn fanatics, 3 thorn holy warriors, and 1 thorn priest. Quest deadline, 7 days. Mission difficulty, a completion reward, plus 10,000 power points. Failure penalty, minus 30,000 power points. Blood Spider said with a little surprise. The main quest actually came automatically, and we don't need to trigger it ourselves. This is a restriction on our camp in advance. Bai Pu frowned and said, according to the interpretation of the background information, there should be 2 main camps in the world of original sin, the Church of Thorns that believes in the doctrine of suffering, and the Thorn Slayer who resists the Church of Thorns. According to common sense, we will have a few days of exploration time and can freely choose one of the 2 camps to do the main quest, but the will of the spirit world has shown such an obvious tendency, which is very abnormal. Does this mean that the strength gap between the 2 camps is very large? Blood Spider is also a master of the main quest. Bai Pu nodded slightly. I'm afraid that in addition to the gap in strength, there are deeper factors. The penalty for the main quest this time is not high, only 30,000 power points will be deducted. We can first observe which camp is worth joining. The Blood Spider suggested. Bai Pu felt that the Blood Spider was a little different from usual. He talked more and seemed to be trying hard to show himself. He didn't say anything, just nodded slightly, and walked forward with the Blood Spider. Along the way, the scenery they saw became more and more bizarre. There was a rabbit with blood-red eyes, which crashed into the big tree again and again, and died on the side of the road with a bloody head. Next to it was a skinny wolf with a hungry belly almost sticking together. The wolf lay lazily on the ground, and had no intention of eating the rabbit corpse that was so close. There were also some very wild plants in the jungle. There was a beech tree, the trunk of which was split into 3 forks, and the branches hung down from 3 directions, revealing the uncovered white heart of the tree. Fortunately, these weird plants and animals are only a minority. Most of the plants and animals are still normal. Bai Pu and his companions met a woodcutter who was walking with a bundle of firewood on his back. The strange thing is that the woodcutter was walking while whipping his thighs with thorny branches, and he was shouting loudly, Our Lady of Thorns. Please forgive me, a sinner. The woodcutter's legs were bleeding, but he didn't care at all. Even when he saw Bai Pu and Zuzu, 2 outsiders with special clothes and incompatible with this world, he turned a blind eye and had only a fanatical expression on his face. Follow him. We should be able to find the settlement of the indigenous people. Bai Pu whispered. The 2 followed the woodcutter in silence, and the woodcutter did not feel any fear or doubt. The 3 of them walked into a village in such a strange way. An open space in the village was crowded with people. A man wearing a priest's robe and a thorny iron crown on his head stood on a higher platform and shouted loudly, We are born with original sin, and only suffering can redeem us. Suffering is the whetstone of the soul. Suffering is the source of strength. Let me tell you the legend of the Our Lady of Thorns. At first, the Virgin Mary, under the revelation of God, realized the original sin she carried. The Virgin Mary took off her clothes, removed all coverings, and lay naked in the thorn bush, letting the thorns pierce her skin and bleed. Whenever the blood stopped flowing, the Virgin Mary would fall to the ground and pray. The thorns were moved by her piety and continued to grow, piercing her body with holy marks. After 7 days and 7 nights, the Virgin Mary's blood was exhausted. She washed away her sins, received God's favor, entered the kingdom of God, and gained the power of immortality. The Virgin Mary could have stayed in the kingdom of God, but she was willing to return to the continent of original sin in order to save the lost lambs and walk on this continent on behalf of God. Praise the Virgin Mary, praise suffering. Waves of voices rang out from the audience, praise the Virgin Mary, praise suffering. The priest wearing an iron crown of thorns shouted in a pious tone, there are many more examples of God's favor. In God's church, there is a devout believer who pours molten gold on himself. Such a new kind of pain also received the favor of God. He became a golden statue and won the great title of Gilded One, and was respected by countless believers. In the Church of God, there is also a devout believer who tied himself to a log. He did not sleep or rest, and did not drink or eat. After 49 days, he also received the favor of God and won the great title of Bound One, and was also respected by countless believers. So, believe in thorns and embrace suffering. This is God's guidance, and this is your wealth. Under the influence of the priest, the people below fully demonstrated the diversity of human species. Some beat their chests with their fists, some knelt on the ground to pray for God's grace, knocking their heads and bleeding, and some even lay on the ground and gnawed the oil on the spot. Bai Pu and Blood Spider looked at each other. There is no need to consider the camp of the Church of Thorns anymore. They are just a bunch of lunatics. Chapter 279. Let's try this one. What should we do? Should we take action? Blood Spider was eager to try. I'm new here, and I don't know how deep this world is. Don't act rashly for now. Bai Pu said softly, I do have an idea. At this time, the atmosphere in the gathering place had been instigated by Father Thorn. Under the influence of the crazy mental state, more and more curious people who embraced suffering appeared. The woodcutter who had been whipping his thigh with thorns took off the firewood on his back, and while crying, he praised the Virgin Mary loudly, and even stuffed the firewood into his throat until his eyes bulged and he suffocated to death. Those crazy people felt fear instinctively when they saw the dead woodcutter. Father Thorn shouted loudly, this person is not pious enough, his pain is not enough, so God did not accept him. Bai Pu could feel the invisible and tangible spiritual fluctuations, which spread throughout the audience with the shouting of Father Thorn. What was more embarrassing was that the whole audience was doing the crazy and curious action of embracing pain, and Bai Pu and Blood Spider, two normal people, seemed extremely eye-catching. Of course, their appearance and clothes also seemed out of tune with this world. Who are you? After hearing the miracles of the great Virgin of Thorns and other people favored by God, you are not moved at all? What a cold and hard heart, even the blood of the Virgin Mary cannot influence it. In the shouting of Father Thorns, the crazy people present seemed to have found a target for bullying and oppression. Whoever can take off their heads may be favored by God. Father Thorns shouted loudly. Suddenly, the crazy people rushed towards Bai Pu and Blood Spider like sharks smelling blood. Wait! Bai Pu's words were transmitted through the automatic translation function. He shouted loudly, I am also a believer of the Virgin Mary. What evidence do you have? Father Thorn stopped and signaled the people to stop. Bai Pu said nothing, took off his upper armor, and took off the silk shirt inside, revealing a strong body of muscles. He took out a bottle of ointment and applied it on his body. Blood Spider blushed and picked up a wooden stick, waved his hand and smashed it. Praise the Virgin Mary. Praise suffering. Bai Pu roared louder than Father Thorn, my assistant, please don't hold back, help me embrace the pain more deeply. Only in this way can I get God's favor. Blood Spider gritted his teeth and closed his eyes. Snap, snap. The wooden stick shattered. After all, it was a random wooden stick, not an equipment. An ordinary wooden stick, under the push and pull of Bai Pu's tendon, can withstand so many hammerings before breaking. It can only be said that this is worthy of the World of Strength 3.6. There were also slightly blue marks on Bai Pu's body. This is equivalent to Blood Spider using its own strength to attack Bai Pu with bare hands, which will cause mild blunt damage. Of course, after Bai Pu activated the adaptive evolution defense, this blunt damage is basically the same as his life recovery speed. Well, it seems that your faith is very devout. Father Thorn looked at the blood spider beside him. What about you? The blood spider pointed to his mouth and said nothing. Bai Pu said, her way of embracing pain is eternal silence. She will never say a word before she is blessed by God. Well, it is indeed a path that few people have tried, but I want to warn you, young believer. The more intense the pain, the more likely it is to be blessed by God. Father Thorn said to Blood Spider. Bai Pu got a hint. Father Thorn, Arise's favorability towards you has increased by 200 points. The current favorability level is neutral, 100/300. Blood Spider also got the same hint, but the favorability she gained was only 50 points, and the current favorability level is even cold, -50/0. From this, it can be seen that the Church of Thorns actually has a strong hostility towards outsiders. In the general spiritual plane, the initial favorability of the natives is mostly neutral, but this seemingly enthusiastic Father Thorn actually has a cold initial favorability of -100 points. Father Thorn handed Bai Pu a black iron rod. I admire your devout belief in embracing pain. With your potential, ordinary wooden sticks are useless. Try this one. There were sharp spikes on the iron rod, and there were even stains of dried blood on it. After taking it, Bai Pu's palm sank. Reprimand rod, rental, equipment quality, elite, blue, equipment position, one-handed, equipment requirements, basic strength 20, attributes, additional attack power 8/15 points, additional skills, painful reprimand, passive, attack hits the flesh and causes additional pain. Durability. 66/80, description, the reprimand rod of the Church of Thorns, and also the murder weapon that took the lives of 12 believers. Bai Pu could only express his gratitude. The way you express your gratitude is to walk on the path of piety and accept stricter discipline. Father Thorn signaled Blood Spider to take action. Apparently, Father Thorn did not directly believe that Bai Pu and the other two were devout believers, so he wanted to test them. Blood Spider looked at Bai Pu with some embarrassment. This was different from an unarmed attack. When Blood Spider was armed with a weapon, the damage caused by the attack was calculated based on its own strength bonus, combat expertise bonus, and level suppression bonus. Moreover, with Father Thorn and his subordinates watching, Blood Spider could not let up even if he wanted to. Come on. I will prove my faith to God. Bai Pu's performance was getting better and better. Blood Spider could only take the admonition stick and beat Bai Pu hard. Bang! The barbs of the iron rod brought out traces of blood, and purple swellings quickly appeared. Bai Pu silently activated the active effect of the iron skin, and the blood river Dao Qi flowed on the surface of his skin. Lines of mysterious runes emerged on Bai Pu's body surface, which was the way the blood river Dao Qi operated according to the rules. Under the infiltration of the ointment applied in advance, the swellings actually subsided at a speed visible to the naked eye. Exclamations rang out one after another. Grace! Next to Father Thorn, a holy warrior of the Thorn Church shouted excitedly, "Oh my God, I actually saw grace! Praise the Virgin Mary, praise suffering!" The people below knelt down one after another, their foreheads pressed tightly against the ground. Many people shed excited tears, chanting the doctrines of the Thorn Church and slogans of praise. Father Thorn hesitated when he saw that Bai Pu was enjoying the full force of the iron rod. But at this time, everyone believed that this was grace, and it was the favor of God that Bai Pu got by embracing suffering. He quickly cast aside the doubts in his heart and said loudly, "Yes, this is grace. Young outsider, you have the potential to become a person favored by God. Come with me, back to the Thorn Church. I will ask for the Holy Thorn to help you get God's favor as soon as possible." Chapter 280. It's great not to have to talk. Bai Pu got another reminder that the favorability of Father Arias of Thorns towards him had increased again, and now it had reached friendly, 320/1000. In any case, after being beaten by the Blood Spider, Bai Pu finally gained the trust of the Thorn Church and followed a missionary team back to the Thorn Church's large base in the local area. Bai Pu borrowed 2 holy warrior cloaks, wrapped himself in the Blood Spider, and disguised himself as aboriginals. Along the way, Father Arias of Thorns talked to Bai Pu and asked about their origins. Bai Pu made up a story, saying that he came from another village and left his hometown to join the Thorn Church. When Bai Pu used his brain power to communicate, Even an old fox like Father Arias was not his opponent. Bai Pu beat him around the bush and got a lot of useful information. For example, this is the southwest valley of the original Sin continent, the Twisted Woodland. The Thorn Church's large base in the Twisted Woodland is located in the southwest valley city, Mulan City. Now the Thorn Church has occupied most of the cities on the entire continent and is preaching to remote areas. Blood Spider was watching from the side, and her eyes were full of stars. She was very grateful to Bai Pu for arranging the identity of Silent One for her. It was so good that she didn't have to talk. To express her gratitude, Blood Spider helped Bai Pu apply ointment every once in a while, and then swung the discipline stick with all her strength to whip Bai Pu's body. Bai Pu was in pain and joy. He could see that the proficiency of Skin of Steel was increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This made Father Arias look at Bai Pu with a softer look, and his favorability towards Blood Spider also increased. He sighed and said, "I now believe that you are not spies sent by the blasphemers. The enjoyment of suffering from the heart like you, Bai Pu's alias, is absolutely impossible to fake." Father Arias is a strong man with spiritual expertise, and people with spiritual expertise generally have the ability to identify lies. It's like in the Three Kingdoms world, an unknown scholar has the ability to judge by appearance. Although this is a special ability of scholars in the Three Kingdoms world, it is also based on the spirit to comprehend. Blood Spider has the ability to vaguely perceive the strength of the opponent. During this period, she also gained something and secretly passed some information to Bai Pu. This missionary team has 10 Thorn Fanatics, who are fanatics of the Thorn Mother, and each of them is a level 7 elite. The 3 Thorn Saint Warriors are the strength of the level 7 enhanced elite. And the strongest Father Arias is a level 7 warrior template. The so-called warrior is another name for the leader template in the advanced spiritual world. The templates of the indigenous people in the advanced spiritual world are ordinary, elite, enhanced elite, warrior, enhanced warrior, and lord from low to high. Bai Pu secretly considered that perhaps in the advanced spiritual world, the strong people with the leader template are only the middle level of the camp. For the middle level of the camp, it is a bit ambiguous to be called leader, so the will of the spiritual world will change the leader template to the warrior template. But whether it is the attribute template or the priority, the leader is equivalent to the warrior. Blood Spider's fuzzy perception ability comes from the additional skill, danger sense, of her equipment, Fear Mask. This passive receiving perception does not cause the perceived object's mental induction. The disadvantage is that it cannot know the target's detailed panel and skills. While Bai Pu was thinking secretly, he suddenly heard the sound of a bowstring. Bang! An ice blue arrow exploded above the team, and the fluttering ice flowers sank, turning into a cold area covered with white frost. Frostflower Arrow Level 4 Special Effect, Frostfall. You are affected by the Awakener, Lanfeng's Frostflower Arrow Frostfall, and your movement speed is reduced by 10 points. 5 points of slowing effect are resisted. You can launch a legitimate defense counterattack against Lanfeng and his teammates. Killing the target will not increase the blood value, and the drop rating of the blood treasure box is +1. I know him. Bai Pu and Blood Spider looked at each other. At this time, if Bai Pu releases the Blood River fighting key and uses the Blood River territory, the movement speed effect can be reduced to about 3 points. But he didn't do so. Lanfeng and others' target was obviously not them. In the frost area, the missionary team was slowed down. Of course, Lanfeng was only level 5 after all. In this advanced spiritual world where the general level was as high as level 7, her slowing control effect was mostly resisted. The missionary team was not panicked and quickly formed a formation to protect Father Arias in the center. Bai Pu and Blood Spider were also protected in the center area thanks to Father Arias. The next second after the frost arrow fell from the sky, a whirlwind-like figure rushed out from the twisted forest. He was very fast, and in a few ups and downs, he had already rushed to the battlefield. He easily avoided the hardwood spears thrown by several Thorn fanatics. The person who rushed out was the wanderer of the border town. He held a thin and long sword in his hand, and his figure flashed to the side of a Thorn fanatic, and cut him down with a light sword. The Thorn fanatic probably saw that the knife was not a big threat, so he just slightly turned his body, held the spear horizontally with both hands, and stabbed it fiercely. Swish! When the border town wanderer's knife touched the neck of the Thorn fanatic, it seemed that an invisible wind condensed, and the blade took on the form of a solid green wind blade, leaving a huge wound on the neck of the Thorn fanatic. Blood splattered. The border town wanderer lightly dodged the spear stab and turned to find the second thorn fanatic. The three thorn holy warriors with knives and shields and full armor roared and pounced on the border town wanderer. But in the dense forest on the side, a green light flashed, and vines quickly spread on the ground, delaying the attack of the three holy warriors. At the same time, the green light flashed again, and a twisted forest turned into four tall tree men, who walked forward heavily and steadily to meet the three holy warriors. A tall and sturdy figure rushed out of the dense forest and rushed straight to Father Orias. In his hand, he was holding a black and red halberd. There are 4 awakeners in total, all of them are people I know. Bai Pu narrowed his eyes and saw that the 2 who appeared were the border town wanderer and the overlord. He could also roughly guess the identities of the 2 people in the jungle. The one who cast a natural spell and summoned the tree man should be Chen Jie from Zhejiang University. His profession is forest sage and a level 6 hero. I think the overlord was brought by her team. The other one who kept shooting arrows was naturally Lan Feng, who was teleported here with the border town wanderer. The blood spider signaled Bai Pu with his eyes, asking if he wanted to start fighting. Bai Pu gently waved his hand. Level 7 natives are not so easy to deal with. Just now, when the border town wanderer and others launched a surprise attack, Bai Pu had taken the opportunity to cast the 9 chapters and checked some information about the Thorn Fanatics and the Thorn Holy Warriors. Chapter 281 Repent. Thorn Crusader, Level 7 Enhanced Elite, Race, Humanoid Aberration, Attributes, Strength 60, Agility 45, Stamina 95, Spirit 30, Skill 1, Painful Distortion Level 7, the Thorn Crusader has been twisted by endless pain. When he reveals his twisted true form, he gains an additional 1,400 health points and removes the humanoid creature's normal vital points. Skill 2, Strength of Suffering Level 7, when a Thorn Crusader suffers pain, he gains additional strength. The more intense the pain, the higher the strength bonus, up to 21 points. Skill 3, Thorn Skin Level 7, the Thorn Crusader's single melee physical damage is reduced by 14 points, and the same amount of damage is rebounded to the attacker. Skills 4-5, at this time, the 3 Thorn Crusader who were blocked by the tree man revealed their twisted true forms while roaring. The one that Bai Pu detected had a twisted true form, a hunched neck and blood red tumors all over his body. The sword, shield, and armor that he was wearing disappeared strangely. After revealing his true form, the Thorn Saint Warrior of the Level 7 Enhanced Elite template had a life value of 4,820 points. He roared and slapped the tree man with one claw, hitting it so hard that wood chips flew and it staggered back. The other 2 Thorn Saint Warriors also completed their transformations. One was a monster lying on all fours, spitting out a long bloody tongue, and the other was a monster with sharp blades stuck in its back, like a standing hedgehog. The 4 tree men were torn to pieces by the fanatics led by the 3 Thorn Saint Warriors in just 10 seconds. It is worth mentioning that even the elite fanatics have additional life value bonuses. According to Bai Pu's detection, the elite life bonus is 700 points, and those Thorn fanatics who are not good at endurance have a total life value of more than 2,000 points. The border town wanderer's initial raid was aimed at the fanatics at the bottom level. He used the Windblade secret to slash the opponent's vital point with a knife, and the idea was to kill the opponent quickly and then deal with other fanatics. The task assigned to him was to quickly clear the fanatics at the bottom level. The damage caused by his attack was indeed terrifying. With a level suppression of level 1, he could still cause more than 500 points of actual damage. If it were an ordinary level 6 elite, he might really be killed by him in seconds. But he was facing a high-level elite. After adding 700 points of life bonus, the total life value exceeded 2,000. A single attack that caused at least 700 points of damage to the vital point could trigger a kill. Therefore, the damage of the border town wanderer was still not enough, and the disadvantages immediately appeared. Several injured Thorn fanatics quickly got up and cooperated with other fanatics to double-team him from front to back. The raid did not achieve the desired results, and the bad consequences quickly appeared. The overlord who pounced on Father Orias was blocked by several Thorn fanatics before he could get close. Get out of the way. The overlord's black and red halberd suddenly chopped down, and a black and red lightning burst out, knocking back several Thorn fanatics, and piercing through the abdomen of a Thorn fanatic, lifting him up high and throwing him down heavily. But this throw failed to get rid of him. Praise the Virgin, praise suffering. The thorn fanatic held the tip of the long handle of the black and red halberd tightly with both hands, making it impossible for the halberd to be pulled out of the abdomen. Doing so is tantamount to letting the cold and sharp halberd blade stir in the intestines, and it will suffer a lot of sharp damage every moment, and it is an attack from the inside of the body, ignoring armor. The thorn fanatic lasted for 3 seconds. But in these 3 seconds, the overlord paid a painful price. The twisted holy warrior with a bloody long tongue suddenly rolled up the overlord's body and tightly bound his movements. The spears of several fanatics nearby stabbed in at the same time, and blood splattered. Ah! The overlord roared, and a large amount of lightning energy on his body exploded in a ring shape. The blood-colored long tongue was shaken off, and at the same time, the overlord shook the halberd, and the black and red energy spread out, finally shaking the thorn fanatic who was holding his beloved weapon tightly into pieces, and he fell dead on the spot. But the overlord's face was also slightly pale. He didn't expect that just dealing with the siege of a few elites and an enhanced elite would consume such an exaggerated amount of professional energy, and he couldn't help but have the idea of retreating. Retreat. The border town wanderer whistled and pulled away. In these few seconds, he also killed a fanatic, but then 2 twisted holy warriors entangled him. With a health value of more than 4,000, the ability to rebound damage, and the power that becomes stronger as the fight goes on, it is really tricky. Bai Pu narrowed his eyes. If he and the blood spider directly fought in the missionary village, I am afraid they would be more embarrassed than the border town wanderer and his group. The difficulty of the advanced spiritual world is completely beyond the estimation of these intermediate genius awakeners. The wanderer of border town and Lanfeng must have known the difficulty of the high-level spiritual world, but it was only passed down by word of mouth by high-level awakeners. They did not attack rashly at first, until they met Chen Overlord by chance, and felt that the combined strength of the 4 of them should be able to challenge a missionary team, so they acted brazenly. But there is a saying, called one knows the cold and warmth of water only after drinking it. The 4 had no experience in venturing into the high-level spiritual world before. After really fighting with the high-level natives, the 4 found that they still underestimated these enemies. Retreat, not to say that it is completely impossible to fight. After all, the 4 are geniuses. Chen and the wanderer of border town are particularly tyrannical. But there is a high possibility of casualties, and they have to use forced separation props to leave. It is better to leave the battle first, and then take it slowly. See clearly, this is the power given by God. This is the grace of God for embracing pain. Father Arias raised his hands high and shouted to the sky, "Repent, you blasphemers, I will use your blood to please the great Virgin of Thorns." As Father Arias shouted, his body also underwent a terrible alienation, and quickly expanded into a monster with 7 tentacles and 7 eyes. It looked a bit like the 100 Eyes ghost in the Heart Demon world, but it was far superior in both size and momentum. The 7 tentacles suddenly gathered together, and the 7 eyes that gathered together burst out with strong light at the same time. Zilla. A dark light shot out. The border town prodigal son changed his position 3 times in a row, but the dark light also adjusted its trajectory 3 times in a row, turning an arc and hitting his back. In an instant, the border town prodigal son froze all over. This is Arias's powerful control skill, suffering repentance. The border town prodigal son immediately used the control release skill, and successfully got out of the repentant state under the offset of priority. But then his body shook, as if he was drunk, and his movement speed was reduced by at least 40 points. Suffering confession, additional effect, remaining sins. If you don't sincerely confess your sins, you will only be entangled in sin. The monster transformed by Father Arias made a rumbling sound. Chapter 282, Heart of Steel. 4. The border town prodigal son was slowed down, but a layer of green light quickly surged from his body surface, and the remaining slowing effect was also expelled. Natural purification. Chenja took action. She was a forest sage who could master a series of natural spells by learning natural knowledge. But the overlord was still entangled in it. He could only grit his teeth and crush a talisman. The star-like light fell to the ground and instantly turned into 2 clay golems, dripping with mud and water, to delay the enemy and withdraw at the same time. Lanfeng also charged up to shoot the frost flower arrow. The frost-cold air combined with the medium-range mud area of the clay golem temporarily froze the enemy's feet. But the black energy of the 3 holy warriors burst out from their bodies at the same time, shattering the ice. Their black energy could even attach to the soles of their feet, and they clattered across the area of the clay golem, without being affected by the slowing effect at all, leaving only a series of resistance. Obviously, the clay golem summoning scroll used by the Overlord was not a powerful prop and had a low priority. Of course, even Overlord may not be able to meet the conditions for using powerful props. The tentacle monster transformed by Father Arias once again gathered and shot out a splitting ray, dismembering the clay golem. Overlord's eyes almost popped out. The clay golem's durability, health value, was as high as 2,000 points. It had good armor and resistance, but it was killed by a skill? Exclamation mark. Bai Pu knew the reason. Arias in the form of a tentacle monster had compressed the 3 physical attributes to less than 40 points, and the mental attribute was as high as 175. In this deformed state, the power of the spell is of course extremely terrifying, and the splitting ray may have even more perverted special effects. Bai Pu also felt the crisis. Father Arias was a warrior, leader, with a 7th level spiritual specialty, and his strength was far beyond that of a 6th level spiritual enhancement leader. The output of single spells was extremely high, and Bai Pu's armor and steel skin and other abilities were ineffective against him. Originally, the stamina of this tentacle monster form was compressed to only 40 points, which means that Father Arias only has 1,000 health points, which is very easy to kill. But the most perverted thing is that Father Arias has a skill similar to Pain Twist. When he transforms into a tentacle monster, he will gain 3,500 health points and 10 fixed damage reduction. 4,500 health points really can't be beaten. Lan Feng, who was hiding in the forest shooting arrows, was also hit. Although the deceleration of her frost arrow frostfall has little effect on the enhanced elite holy warriors, it still has a great impact on the thorn fanatics. The natives monsters of the spirit world don't have any hatred lists, and they won't stupidly attack tanks in melee range. They will judge who is the biggest threat and who is easiest to kill based on their own wisdom. So they collectively chose Lan Feng, and threw their spears like raindrops, wrapped in strong black energy. Lan Feng had originally hidden behind a big tree, thinking that this tree with a world strength of 3.6 could provide her with shelter, but she didn't expect that the first 2 spears alone would blow the tree apart. Later, Lan Feng took the remaining force of 2 spears, and a bloody pit was blown out of her chest armor. She was also quick to see the opportunity, rolling on the ground for several times, and dodged the subsequent spear attacks. Lan Feng baby, you and the Overlord quickly retreat. I'll take Chen Jie away later. The Border City Wanderer shouted loudly. He could run away at high speed with 1 person, but it was impossible to run with 3 people. Immediately, the Border City Wanderer shouted loudly to Chen Jie, asking her to cast a spell to delay the enemy. Chen Jie pursed her lips tightly. Her large-scale delay spell required continuous casting, which meant that she could not escape in time, and her fate would be in the hands of the Border City Wanderer. Fortunately, the God's Envoy also knew that the difficulty of this venture into the Matrix plane was extremely high, and gave the candidate Alex the power to teleport away at any time. It's just like forcing a prop to leave. Once the teleportation power is activated to force it to leave, all the gains in the Matrix plane will disappear, and only the Messenger of God has the ability to intercept a small part. Chen Jie did not hesitate too much and began to chant directly. As she chanted one syllable after another, the natural flower crown on her head lit up with elf words. The border town prodigal son spun 7 or 8 times like a gyroscope, and suddenly swung the sword. Suddenly, a fierce wind rushed in the opposite direction, and all the members of the Church of Thorns who were heading towards Lan Feng and the Overlord were swept away by the wind, and their speed was reduced by as much as 40 points. However, this gust of wind blew on the Overlord, Lan Feng and others, and they slid away separately as if they had spirituality. It did not affect their speed at all. This is the Border Town Prodigal Son's enhanced ultimate skill combined with the ultimate of wind, Storm Surge. Chen Ji's chanting ended, and she used the ultimate skill combined with the ultimate of life, Enemy of Nature, which activated the large area of dead vines under the feet of the Church of Thorns team, allowing them to regain vitality and constantly attack the enemy. Even though the holy warriors of the Church of Thorns used the black energy to break the vines, the broken vines grew out again in the next second, and they were trapped again after only 1 or 2 steps. The tentacle monster transformed by Father Arias was furious, but he did not have any additional spells to stop the tyrant and Lan Feng from escaping. Because he only had 6 skills in total, 3 of which were the special skills of the Church of Thorns, such as increasing blood volume, damage reduction and rebound, an injury gain, and he only had 3 active spells to learn. Bai Pu guessed that this should be a major feature of the world of original sin. These powerful high-level natives looked arrogant, but in fact they were abnormally powerful. Too few active skills were a flaw. If it was a real high-level spiritual world, the real high-level natives would definitely have many skills and be even more powerful. What should I do? Which side should I help? Blood Spider asked in the temporary team channel. We should have both cooperative and competitive relationships with the Border Town Wanderer and Chenje teams. Bai Pu took off his cloak and put on his own clothes and armor, holding a large shield in his left hand and a large sword in his right hand. But considering the relationship between the Border Town Wanderer and Overlord, the possibility of competition is higher. Let's submit a letter of allegiance to the Church of Thorns first. Bai Pu straightened his waist. Under the wash of the mighty Blood River Phantom, the effects of both the Border Town Wanderer's storm and Chenji's natural enemies were weakened by more than half. The Border Town Wanderer and Overlord, who were nearby, changed color at the same time, and their movement speed was forcibly reduced by 30 points. However, all members of the Church of Thorns received a 30-point acceleration effect. Steel Heart. For well done, you are indeed a devout believer and have obtained a powerful divine grace. The tentacle monster transformed by Father Arias laughed loudly. Chapter 283. Now, I'll give you a chance for a fair fight. The moment the Blood River territory unfolded, Bian Changlangzi and others realized the existence of Bai Pu. After all, this powerful skill that was almost like the Lord's domain skill had left a deep impression on them in the competition a few days ago. The 4 people shouted the word Steel Heart almost at the same time. Needless to say, there was resentment and panic at this moment. But this is the iron rule of the spirit world. Since there is a conflict of interests, then each one relies on his own ability, and there is no regret in life and death. Bai Pu strode forward, and no matter whether it was against the wind or the vines, they all collapsed under the scouring of the Blood River Phantom. He came to the Overlord. Last time when I changed my job, you asked me for a fair fight. Now, I will give you a chance for a fair fight. The Overlord's face turned black, and he roared in a muffled voice and swung the halberd to chop over, and the black and red energy burst. However, Bai Pu's strength at this time has completely surpassed him. Under the blessing of the speed of the Blood River territory, he dodged lightly, and the right-hand sword fell vertically, leaving a jagged wound on the side of the Overlord's body. The black and red halberd of the Overlord suddenly emitted a dozen phantoms, which were real and fake, making it hard to figure out. This technique was obviously the result of the hard work of the Overlord. But facing this uncertain halberd shadow, Bai Pu only made the simplest move. That is to slap the tower shield in his left hand horizontally. Based on the thick area of the tower shield, no matter whether it was real or fake, it was blocked. The strong recoil force made the Overlord's wrist numb and his tiger's mouth felt like it was cracked. He took a step back involuntarily. The Overlord felt aggrieved. He was a hero with strength. His usual fighting style was to break the trick with force. Today, Bai Pu broke the exquisite halberd technique with his strong power. After only 2 moves, the Overlord was injured by the sword. The Wanderer of Border Town and Chenje were maintaining their ultimate skills. Only Lan Feng, who was seriously injured, shot an arrow to rescue them. But this arrow was knocked down by a crossbow arrow in the air. Blood Spider crouched silently and moved forward, firing 3 arrows from her crossbow, aiming directly at Lan Feng. Blood Spider! You are so disrespectful! Lan Feng screamed. Blood Spider followed her silent image and cast a mark from a distance without saying a word. Dragon Hunter Mark, Occupational Skill. The Dragon Hunter gains an additional 50 damage to the marked target. If the target is a dragon, the damage bonus is doubled. When moving towards the mark, the Dragon Hunter gains the hunting effect and gains an additional 25 speed increase. The mark lasts for 72 hours, during which time the Dragon Hunter can sense the location of the mark. Lan Feng's heart sank. She knew that with the Dragon Hunter mark, she would not be able to escape the Blood Spider's pursuit. And because of the Dragon Hunter mark, it was very likely that the team would be exposed and it would be difficult to escape the pursuit of the Church of Thorns. So Lan Feng chose to use divine power to escape from the world of original sin. On the other side, the Border Town prodigal suddenly ended the energy injection of Storm Surge, and the violent winds in the sky subsided in an instant. He activated Flash, and his figure suddenly left the Blood River territory. He reached out and pulled Chen Jack, and and the bodies of both of them burst into blue light at the same time, and their speed increased suddenly. Bai Pu stretched out his hand from a distance and tried to throw a lasso to hit and pull the border town wanderer back. But above Chen Ji's head, an ancient elven text shone brightly, resisting this control. Then the elven text dimmed, but the border town wanderer and the two had already fled far away, even out of the range of Bai Pu's spinning throw. It's a pity, if these two reserve voters are taken away, the subsequent competition pressure will be much smaller. Bai Pu thought silently, put the shield in the quick equipment area of the belt, and then held the chainsaw sword with both hands to increase the strength of the overlord. The overlord was already struggling under Bai Pu's attack. When Bai Pu put away the shield and attacked with a most violent posture, he was completely unable to resist. He could only stare at Bai Pu with resigned anger, and also use divine power to leave the world of original sin. The battle is over. Seeing two dead and two escaped, the missionary team put away their twisted transformations and returned to human form. It is worth mentioning that after the Thorn Saint warriors returned to human form, they were naked and ugly at first, but their flesh and blood squirmed and quickly grew hard in armor, weapons and shields. It turned out that their weapons and equipment in human form were all generated by their own flesh and blood through the twisted power. Father Arias tidied his robes and came over to check the situation of the two bodies. Although Bai Wang and Lan Feng used divine power to escape, the will of the spirit world would still create copies of their bodies to conceal the eyes and ears of the natives. The holy strength of these two blasphemers is not strong, but their fighting methods are very unique. I have never seen such people before. It seems that the blasphemers' organization has added new people. Father Arias kicked the corpse, turned around and said, "Let's go back to the headquarters of Mulan City." Now that Bai Pu has handed over the lives of Bai Wang and Lan Feng as a token of his loyalty, he has completely gained the trust of Father Arias. He took the opportunity to strike up a conversation and learn more information indirectly. The first is Holy Force. Holy Force is the black energy that is obtained by the holy warriors through the cultivation of God's grace. The black energy possessed by Father Arias is more variable, like flowing water waves, so it is called Holy Wave Force. In Bai Pu's opinion, Holy Force is actually equivalent to Dao Qi, and Holy Wave Force is equivalent to the magic power of the caster. Then Bai Pu asked about the hierarchy of the church indirectly. The doctrine of the Church of Thorns is to open up your body and mind to accept the baptism of suffering, cleanse your original sin, and obtain God's favor. At present, there are three God's favored people in the Church of Thorns: the Gilded One, the Bound One, and the Two-Faced Man. The three God's favored people have all received direct infusion of God's power. Each of them has a holy object. They are located in the central, southwestern and eastern parts of the continent of original sin, and are the highest leaders of the Church of Thorns except for the Mother of Thorns. The God's favored person who is located in the southwest area is the legendary Gilded One. Below the three great gods, there are the bishops and Holy War Legion commanders of the church in major cities. Although they have not received direct infusion of divine power, they have also received divine grace more than once, and their strength is equally strong. As for Father Arias, he is under the command of Bishop Aquino of Mulan City, and is considered a middle-level cadre of the church. At present, the Church of Thorns has almost unified the beliefs of the original sin continent. Among them, there are sects that do not obey the doctrine of suffering, and they have all been destroyed in the Holy War. Only some blasphemers who call themselves Thorn Cutter have united. They are the remnants of the destroyed sects. At present, the Lord Bound is personally directing the Holy War to eliminate the Thorn Cutter. Bai Pu was surprised. Father Arias, as a warrior template, equals leader template, is only a middle level. Then the bishops and Holy War Legion commanders above him must be enhanced warrior templates, right? As a God-favored person, the Gilded One also holds the holy weapon. There is no doubt that his strength is a lord. There is also a terrifying Mother Thorn. The difficulty of the original sin world is so amazing. Bai Pu then asked about the holy weapon, and in his conversation, he showed his yearning for the powerful power of the holy weapon. Father Arias, whose favorability had been further improved, did not reject Bai Pu's yearning for power. After all, many of those who were willing to join the Church of Thorns were tempted by power and eventually twisted into holy warriors. There were only a few missionaries with firm beliefs like him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 looks like a fish. The holy artifact has great power and is a treasure bestowed by God on the original Sin continent. The ownership belongs to God, and the right to use it belongs to the Church. Only the Church is qualified to take the holy artifact bestowed by God and spread the glory of God. Where do the holy artifacts usually appear? Bai Pu asked. The holy artifacts only appear in places blessed by God. Bai Pu learned that the so-called places blessed by God are actually areas where supernatural phenomena occur. For example, a village has a blood moon incident, and all the people in the village are eaten by mysterious beings. It may be a place blessed by God. For example, there is a city that disappears overnight, leaving only a huge sinkhole in its original place. This must be a place blessed by God. Bai Pu's eyes twitched when he heard it. Is this really a blessing from God? I'm afraid it's the blessing of the devil. But think about it, the Church of Thorns is composed of a group of twisted monsters, and the God they believe in is probably a devil, or at best an evil God. It's reasonable to leave such a blessing from God. Father Arias didn't know what Bai Pu was thinking, so he gave a lot of useful information. There are many rumors about the God-given land on the continent, but many of them are just misunderstandings. The Church attaches great importance to the collection of holy artifacts, so Lord Gilder and Lord Two-Faced are collecting news about holy artifacts in the southwest and east of the continent respectively. What Lord Gilder is currently investigating in the southwest is the God-given Cheyenne Ken. Bai Pu said strangely, the God-given Cheyenne Ken is the city that disappeared overnight, right? Isn't this a legend from a long time ago? To be precise, it has happened 3 years ago. But the Great Virgin Mary has issued an edict that the holy artifact of the God-given Cheyenne Ken is about to appear in the world. The power of this holy artifact is extremely powerful, comparable to the sum of the power of the holy artifacts in the Church's inventory. So Lord Gilder attaches great importance to it. Steel Heart. In the twisted jungle, the wanderer from the border town let out a roar like a wounded beast. Chen Jet hugged his shoulders and said lightly, "This time we underestimated the enemy too much and thought we could easily get rid of a missionary team. In fact, even if Steelheart hadn't taken action, we wouldn't have been able to deal with a missionary team. But if it weren't for Steelheart, Lanfang could have left." The border town prodigal son shouted angrily. "The overlord I brought with me also escaped back. Alice, I really don't know how to explain to Aunt Jo." Chen Jie shook his head. He had just arrived in the world of original sin, and without getting any benefits, he fled back to reality with injuries all over his body. According to the unwritten rules between the awakened forces, the exploration of the spiritual world depends on each person's ability. The Zijing Zhou family had no way to hold the perpetrator Bai Pu accountable, and could only secretly blame Chen Jie for not protecting him well. The border town prodigal son walked around in place for a few circles like a trapped beast, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "No, this matter can't just be let go. What do you want? Now we are in the dark, and Steelheart is in the light." The border town prodigal son gritted his teeth. "Find a chance to kill him, or at least drive him out. Are you here to fight with Steelheart, or to complete the mission of the Lord God's messenger?" Chen Jie said coldly. "Don't forget what Goddess Teddy said. In this test, those who perform well in the preliminary elections can be directly converted to regular voters, while those who perform poorly will have their seeds of dream blessing taken back." The border town prodigal son stopped talking. He calmed down. "Okay, I admit that there were some mistakes in my command. Now you are in charge, what do you plan to do?" Chen Jie thought for a while and said, "With the strength of us intermediate awakeners, it is difficult to compete with high-level indigenous strongmen, not to mention the powerful Thorn Church. However, the Thorn Church also has hostile indigenous forces. We can look for the Thorn Cutter camp and seek to join." In a mud pit beside a dry riverbed, two fish were lying in the mud, spitting bubbles at each other to moisten each other's bodies. A big hand wrapped in steel reached out to pick up the two fish. An ancient cane reached out simultaneously, with wisps of golden light, blocking the big steel hand. At the same time, a voice full of compassion rang out, "Metallica, how pitiful the experience of these two little fishes." The man holding the ancient cane was a young man with golden curly hair. He was wrapped in a black priest robe, and his eyes seemed to be full of kindness and sympathy. The owner of the big steel hand, Metallica, was a man 2 meters tall, with broad shoulders and a thick back like a bear. Yemen. Metallica took out a standard white armor from the storage space, bit off a large piece, chewed it in his mouth, and said in a muffled voice, "I need to eat. This damn world lacks my food. If you are hungry, you can eat steel equipment, which will help you to deeply comprehend the mysteries of metal." The blonde priest Yemen carefully cleaned the dirt for the two small fish, looked into the eyes of the fish, and said slowly, "Look at them, how pitiful, and finally they can only dry in the mud pit. Instead of enduring such torture, it is better to be freed as soon as possible, and may the light be with you." A tiny ray of light shot out from Yemen's fingertips, like a sharp and small scalpel, scraping the scales of the two small fish clean, and then peeling off pieces of fish meat, leaving only two bloody fish skeletons. Yemen picked up a piece of fish meat and put it into his mouth gracefully. Behind the armored man Metallica and the blonde priest Yemen, there were two aboriginals dressed as civilians. They lowered their eyebrows and their attitude was very respectful. "Yemen, what are your plans next?" Metallica asked. Yemen had obviously thought it through, and said confidently, "According to the confessions of these two lost lambs, not far in front of our location is the city of Fairy, a large base of the Church of Thorns. So, we want to join the Church of Thorns? This is a really good idea. Once we get to the top of the Church of Thorns, we can plot against the holy artifacts they store. Don't talk nonsense, we are here to save these poor people who have fallen into darkness, and the so-called holy artifacts must be the source of their corruption and degeneration, and we must take them away and purify them." Yemen had a look of compassion on his face. Southwest region, Mulan City. Bai Pu and Blood Spider came to the branch of the Church of Thorns in Mulan City. The bishop of this branch, Lord Yakino, is presiding over the suffering ceremony and cannot get away for the time being, so Bai Pu and the others can only wait. Finally, the suffering ceremony ended, and the crowd dispersed from the chapel one after another. "Those two people look like fish," Blood Spider whispered in the team channel. Bai Pu looked up and his eyes suddenly fixed. Two fishmen walked out of the crowd. The one walking behind had an octopus head, golden eyes, four soft whiskers hanging down from his chin, and a staff that looked like a water vine in his hand. Chapter 285. You know nothing about the truth. Octopus-headed Moshet. Bai Pu couldn't help but think of the scavenger mission. In that mission to clear the space-time nodes in the other world, the alien walker who guarded the node, Moshet, had endless displacement life-saving spells and powerful void ice spike skills. At that time, Moshet's mission failed and was about to be wiped out by the spirit world. But Moshet should have activated the power of a certain god and turned the result of the annihilation into the punishment of the Abyss Road. Now Bai Pu's strength is no longer what it used to be, but the strength of the octopus-headed Moshet has also improved. Just from the appearance, Bai Pu found something unusual. The two whiskers on Moshet's chin have now become four. Perhaps the punishment of the Abyss Road is also a kind of experience? Bai Pu lowered his eyes. However, the clothes of Bai Pu and Blood Spider are quite different from those of the natives of the world of original sin. Moshet and the fishman with shark teeth behind him still easily found Bai Pu. "Who are you?" Moshet walked in front of Bai Pu with an unfriendly tone. "Same as you," Bai Pu said calmly. He was not worried about being recognized by Moshet. Although the spirit world did not adjust Bai Pu's appearance in the world of original sin this time, Bai Pu did have his appearance adjusted last time in the world of flesh plague, distortion. The image of the Nordic handsome guy at that time and the image of a Chinese handsome guy now are two different styles of handsomeness. What's more, after Bai Pu changed his job, his figure became tall and masculine, and his temperament also changed a lot from before. Bai Pu believed that Moshet was also a reserve voter who was recruited. But Bai Pu didn't understand why Moshet came to Mulan City before them and was qualified to participate in the suffering ceremony. This qualification is not available to everyone. "Same as us." Moshet seemed to have heard something funny, and said coldly, "Stupid human, you know nothing about the truth." Blood Spider's hands had already touched her thighs on both sides. There were her suit of double daggers tied there. With a sense of superiority, Moshet looked down at Bai Pu and said, "Human, I don't know whether you were sent by the gods or summoned by the will of the spiritual world you belong to come to this world of original sin. But you'd better remember that this is the earthly kingdom of the Lord of Suffering, the ally of the great Muzuru. If you come here with malice, I, as a warrior blessed by God, will definitely make you bleed." Muzuru's ally, the earthly kingdom of the Lord of Suffering? Bai Pu's eyes suddenly lit up. Moshet's words were like the last piece of the puzzle, allowing Bai Pu to complete his guess about the background of the world of original sin and the relationship between the gods and the will of the spiritual world. The world of original sin, as a matrix plane, produces holy vessels. This is a very important wonder for the gods and the will of the spiritual world. There was a god named Lord of Suffering who first discovered the world of original sin and exerted influence on it through the messenger of God Our Lady of Thorns, gradually distorting it. The Lord of Suffering has a home advantage here. He spent a long time to establish the Church of Thorns, mastered the highest level of combat power on the continent, and then set restrictions by twisting the laws, so that high-level awakeners cannot enter this world. The various gods are obviously unwilling, but they can only send their own reserve voters to the world of original sin to compete for the holy artifact. As the saying goes, ants bite the elephant to death. Although the reserve voters are not as strong as the high-level lords, they can still pose a threat to the lords when they are in large numbers, and may seize the holy artifact. The Lord of Suffering is not alone. He also has allies, the god believed by the octopus head, Muzulu. The allies of the Lord of Suffering will simultaneously send their reserve voters to the world of original sin to assist the Church of Thorns in defense. After understanding the big background, Bai Pu instantly understood why Mashit had such a high status in the world of original sin. This is half of his home court. Now Mashit can confirm that Bai Pu is not really on the side of the Lord of Suffering. He joined the Church of Thorns with a very high intention. Come on, I also want to know what's so great about you. Is it just that you have more beard than others? Bai Pu looked at his 4 flesh whiskers. This is not a beard. Mashit said angrily, and the 4 flesh whiskers under his jaw twisted. Mr. Mashit, what happened? You and our foreign believer seem to be chatting very speculatively. A gentle voice sounded. Bai Pu and Mashit looked over at the same time. The one who spoke was a tall old man wearing a red pointed hat and a red priest robe. Beside him, Father Arias stood respectfully, like a minion. Needless to say, this is the missionary leader of the Thorn Church in Mulan City, Bishop Aquino. Mashit wanted to say that this was a spy sent by other gods, don't believe him. But as an awakened person, Mashit has no ability to remind the natives of the Thorn Church. Because as long as he says any secrets about awakened people, the real world, and the spiritual world transmission, it will touch the knowledge barrier of the natives, and automatically turn into nonsense in the ears of the natives, or directly block it. Unless Mashit asks for a divine messenger, and then the divine messenger asks the god Muzulu, and then Muzulu communicates with the Lord of Suffering, and then the Lord of Suffering issues an oracle through the Holy Mother of Thorns. The difficulty of this series of operations can be imagined. This is just to deal with Bai Pu, a level 5 awakener. It is as exaggerated as using a missile to hide a mosquito. In the first link, it will be rejected by Muzulu's divine messenger. Mashit can only do his best to slander Bai Pu, and said coldly, I don't like this person very much. I can't see any piety for suffering in him. I suggest that the church be vigilant against him. Yakino laughed dumbly and said, Mr. Mashit, you are not a believer in suffering either, but you have come here, haven't you? Bai Pu smiled slightly. Mashit's slander is without any basis and will not work. Unless his reputation in the Church of Thorns reaches reverence, or his favorability with Bishop Yakino reaches the friend level, and he leads Bai Pu's reputation and favorability by a cliff, such slander may be effective. Now, Mashit only had the first mover advantage due to his god background. It was impossible for the Thorn Church to expel or be hostile to Bai Pu with just a few words. Mashit also knew this. He snorted coldly and said to Bai Pu, I will keep an eye on you. Bai Pu spread his hands innocently, then took out the discipline stick and hit his body without arm or protection twice, revealing a look of enjoyment. Praise the Virgin Mary, praise suffering. I will prove my devotion to faith. Chapter 286 Your heart is not pious enough. Seeing Bai Pu's expression gradually changing, Mashit was also a little shaken. Bai Pu's enjoyment was not fake at all. Looking at his appearance, he wanted to give himself 2 more sticks. Young outsider, put away the stick of admonition. Bishop Aquino looked at Bai Pu and smiled, I can see that your heart is not pious enough. Mashit was refreshed. He thought his slander worked. Bai Pu was a little panicked. Could it be that this old charlatan saw something wrong? Bishop Aquino smiled and said, You are not enjoying the difficulties, but you are enduring the suffering in pursuit of power. Your heart is not pious, but I recognize your determination to pursue power. Many holy warriors have the same mentality when they first join the church. Bai Pu breathed a sigh of relief. The old charlatan was panting when he spoke. Fortunately, Bai Pu had a strong heart, otherwise he would have been scared to have a heart attack. Only by opening your heart and enjoying suffering can you be blessed by God. Bishop Aquino said leisurely, "You are not qualified to participate in this suffering ceremony. Next, you will accompany Arias to continue to preach. When you have accumulated enough contributions, you can participate in the next suffering ceremony." Bai Pu got a prompt. "You have joined the Thorn Church. Your reputation in the Thorn Church is activated, and it is currently cold, -100. Warning, the Thorn Church only recognizes their kind. As a normal human, you cannot open a reputation level higher than friendly in the Thorn Church. Side quest, preaching, quest objective, protect Father Arias' mission and bring back 30 Thorn recruits. Quest difficulty, unknown, quest deadline. 72 hours, quest reward, Thorn Church merit plus 100-300. After leaving the task, Bishop Aquino floated away. Father Arias assigned rooms to Bai Pu and Blood Spider. The Thorn Church embraces suffering, but only during penance. The enjoyment at other times, on the contrary, is more focused. According to Father Arias, only by experiencing the ultimate happiness can one have a deeper understanding of suffering. Spacious rooms, complete furniture, comfortable big beds, a wide range of delicacies, and diligently serving girls. Under the relatively backward productivity conditions of the original Sin continent, the reason why the Thorn Church can enjoy such luxury is because the Church controls not only faith but also force. There is no city lord in this city. All matters, big or small, are decided by Bishop Aquino, and at most he respects the opinion of the head of the Holy War Caller. Such a system of combining politics and religion is equivalent to taking the blood of the entire continent to support a church, so it is naturally extravagant. In a trance, Bai Pu recalled the days when he was a fake emperor in the Swedish royal palace. However, such a wonderful enjoyment is very short. Bai Pu and Blood Spider can only rest here for one night. They have to set out with Father Arias early the next morning to go out to preach. Blood Spider quietly asked Bai Pu, "If we join the Church of Thorns, is there any future for us?" I received a reminder that our reputation here can only be raised to friendly at most. The camp reputation is limited to friendly, which means that many benefits of the camp cannot be enjoyed by the awakened. Fighting for the camp is somewhat not worth it. I received the same reminder. But my idea is the opposite of yours. I think joining the Church of Thorns is a great move. If it is operated properly, the benefits we can get are beyond imagination. Bai Pu said, "Look, after we joined the Church of Thorns camp, our main mission has not been declared a failure. Even the missions issued by the regional bishop of the Church of Thorns were forcibly squeezed into side missions. This can only mean that the power of the Church of Thorns in this world has become so great that the will of the spiritual world cannot tolerate it. This may also involve the struggle between the will of the spiritual world and the gods." Blood Spider frowned slightly. "According to what you said, our joining the Church of Thorns is itself against the will of the spiritual world. Is this really good?" Bai Pu smiled and said, "We will definitely turn against them in the end. After all, this force has many discriminations against normal humans. Only by mutating into monsters can we get their true recognition. But before we turn against them, we have to get enough benefits. In the eastern part of the original Sin continent, the Valley of Miracles, there are monster corpses lying all over the ground. The most eye-catching one is a monster corpse with 7 eyes and 7 tentacles. It shows traces of charring, dry, and falling off, like embers burned by a raging fire. Finally, the main quest is completed. Is the difficulty of this main quest really only A level? I think if it weren't for Boss Feng He, it would be impossible to complete it." A female awakener with a plain face said with lingering fear. Wang Zhen next to him smiled and said, "This is because we chose a more difficult way to complete it. If we invite the group of Thorncutter to join us and besiege this missionary team together, I believe it should be much easier." Wang Zhen is right. Feng He, with red hair, said calmly, "However, if the strength is sufficient, directly carrying the head of this monster priest to find the Thorncutter can quickly improve the reputation and save a lot of time. What we lack most now is time." Wang Zhen pondered and said, "According to the information obtained at the beginning, we are now in the eastern area of the original Sin continent. This time, the spiritual world teleportation did not follow the new matching rules to match all awakeners to the same area. The will of the spiritual world seems to have divided us into different groups for some consideration and assigned us to different areas of the continent. It is almost impossible to cross the area within these short 7 days. Honestly speaking, it's not very good to be teleported here. There is only one known holy weapon, which is held by the senior lord two-faced man. To complete the mission of the Lord of the Sun, you have to challenge this senior lord, but before you meet him, you have to face a large number of warrior-level monsters. It's really a headache. Feng Huo glanced at Wang Zhen and said lightly, Xiangxing, you don't have to pretend not to understand, just say what you think directly. I don't need you to restrain your edge and use your brain power as the top scorer of the 805 college entrance examination. Wang Zhen smiled awkwardly, and his expression gradually became serious. According to the information exchanged by those thorn cutter, it seems that the Thorn Church also attaches great importance to the holy weapon. It specially sent Two-Faced Man, one of the 3 giants, to collect it in the eastern part of the continent. We can fabricate a rumor of a land blessed by God to lure that guy out of his nest. Great, we can take this priest's head and find the thorn cutter, and let those local snakes spread rumors. They are the remnants of the ruined church, and they must have channels to make small moves. We still have to collect information about the Two-Faced Man and find a terrain that can best restrain him as a place blessed by God. When the Two-Faced Man is lured out, we will harass him along the way, weaken the guards around him, and finally kill him in the fake place blessed by God and explode the holy weapon. After Wang Zhen proposed the idea, the ordinary-faced male and female awakeners around him spoke up one after another to supplement and perfect Wang Zhen's plan. Very good, let's do it. This time, we must seize the opportunity to become a real elect in advance. I think those old opponents who have been teleported to other areas of the continent must be unwilling to be lonely. After Feng He rested, he slowly stood up. Let's go. Go and meet up with a group of thorn cutters. Chapter 287. We should talk about terms. Southwest of the original Sin continent, Twisted Jungle. Bai Pu and Blood Spider followed Father Arias's missionary team. Bai Pu and Blood Spider had analyzed that if only the indigenous people were considered, the difficulty of this mission was actually very low. Because Father Arias was already familiar with missionary affairs. Even without Bai Pu's participation, it would not be difficult to recruit 30 new thorn recruits. But the difficulty of this mission is unknown, which means that there are awakened people from the hostile camp involved, for example, the Boulder Town prodigal son and Chen Jie who ran away last time. When passing through the jungle, Bai Pu asked if they could take a detour. After all, in the jungle, they might be ambushed by the enemy. Father Arias said disapprovingly, the last victory has killed 2 blasphemers who overestimated their own strength. The 2 who escaped have long been scared. Under the protection of the brave holy warriors and devout fanatics, we are not afraid of any blasphemers. Father Arias disagreed with taking a detour, mainly because the Twisted Jungle is vast and it might take more than 10 hours to take a detour. Bai Pu's reputation level is too low now, and his words and deeds can't gain the attention of the natives at all. He stopped persuading, wearing a cloak, and followed the team silently with Blood Spider. Suddenly, a rustling sound was heard, and sand and stones flew around. Trees waved branches and vines, whipping and binding like whips. A thorn fanatic was stabbed into the body by the sharp branches extending from 2 big trees. Then the branches bounced to both sides like a taut bowstring, tearing the body of the thorn fanatic abruptly, and blood flowed. Secret skill, enemy of nature, level 4 special effect, tree spear tier. It was the forest sage Chen Song, who attacked again. Bai Pu raised his tower shield and blocked in front of Blood Spider to help her block the attack of the trees. Fortunately, they were in the inner circle and the intensity of the attack was low. Whoosh! An arrow came through the air with great force, shooting into the chest of a thorn holy warrior and nailing it to a big tree behind him. The tree was also affected by the enemy of nature. Its thick branches were twisted and tangled, and it bound the thorn saint warrior. The arrow exploded in the thorn saint warrior's chest, and a dazzling lightning burst out. The thorn saint warrior revealed his twisted true body, and was not killed by the arrow in seconds, but the subsequent dazzling lightning made him tremble and twitch all over, and his health continued to drop. The strong man who shot the arrow slowly appeared in the forest. This was a slender young man with a handsome face and very long arms, which was similar to the legendary Liu Huangshu's natural appearance. His hands were over his knees. He was wearing leather armor, with 2 heavy thorn-cutting knives overlapping on his chest, and he was carrying a long bow of nearly 2 meters. Such a strong bow, I am afraid that without a good enough arm span talent, it can't even be pulled to the full. The arrow just now was the attack of this young archer. Since he was an enemy, he was not afraid of being targeted by him. Bai Pu quickly threw out a 9-chapter detection. Lugo, warrior level 7, race, humanoid, human profession, storm sniper attributes, strength 75, agility 105, stamina, spirit 42, skill 1, warrior's fortitude, gain 3,500 additional health points and 10 fixed damage reduction points. Skill 2, storm arrow, shoot arrows with the power of the storm, attaching elemental damage of wind and thunder, and causing control judgment based on the dual attributes to the target. Skills 3-7. Skill 8, wind control, ride the wind and increase your own movement speed by 53 points. In the wind control state, the accuracy of long-range shooting will not decrease. Seeing that the level is level 7, Bai Pu realized that this is an indigenous strong man, because the highest awakened who can come to the original Sin continent is only level 6. Another blasphemer. Kill him. Father Arias's body quickly twisted and turned into a tentacle monster with 7 eyes, making a buzzing roar. The remaining 2 Thorn Saints led the fanatics to sprint in the direction of Lugo. Because Lugo was a powerful archer, close combat was the only option to face him. However, Lugo sneered, and the breeze blew on his body. The whole person floated lightly at a height of 3 inches above the ground, retreating backwards, while the longbow in his hand kept pulling. Arrow after arrow, each arrow was so fast that people had no time to defend. What's more terrifying is that Lugo can actually attach the elemental energy of wind and thunder to the arrows, greatly increasing the sharp damage and paralyzing the effect. If you are hit by one of his arrows, you will inevitably be hit by the second and third arrows. As an elite, the Thorn Fanatic has a health value of up to 2,000 points, but under the shooting of such a strong bow and arrow, it can't withstand a few arrows and will fall into a state of serious injury, and its combat power will be reduced by half. Fortunately, long-range shooting does not have the damage increase of combat expertise, otherwise Lugo will definitely shoot one by one, and kill this group of fanatics in minutes. The 2 leading Thorn Saints could only order the zealots to hide among the trees and look for opportunities to chase. But this would make the pursuit even less efficient. Dio, why don't you chase? Father Arias looked very unhappy. Bai Pu shook his head and said, "We are here to protect you. I have 2 zealots around me, and I am not a civilian without any combat ability," Father Arias said loudly. However, before he finished speaking, a group of people and horses quickly emerged from the other side of the dense forest. On their breastplates, they all had the same pattern of crossed thorn blades. Thorn cutters. These thorn cutters pounced on Father Arias like tigers. The 2 zealot guards were loyal and responsible. Father Arias waved his tentacles from behind and attacked with powerful fission rays. Dio, hurry up. Father Arias urged with a buzzing sound. I think we should talk about the terms. Bai Pu said calmly, just as you and Bishop Aquino said, I joined the Thorn Church for power. Last time, I helped the church kill 2 blasphemers, but I didn't get any reward. This time, I am accompanying you on a mission to accumulate merits. The bishop also promised you the qualification to participate in the tribulation ceremony. Only after you participate in the tribulation ceremony, you may be able to obtain the true grace of God and become one of our kind. Father Arias said angrily. Sorry, I still hope to see more practical promises. Bai Pu showed the discipline stick in his hand. For example, I like this one very much. You promised last time that I would get the Holy Thorn after returning to the church, right? The discipline stick has high durability, can bring extra pain, and has an additional bonus for practicing, Skin of Steel. Now Bai Pu's Skin of Steel is almost at level 2, and a large part of it is the effect of the discipline stick. The reason why Bai Pu is bargaining now is that the benefits of the Thorn Church are not easy to get. You must transform into a monster and open a reputation above respect to get it. But Bai Pu estimated that transforming into a monster would mean giving up the identity of an awakener and becoming a member of the world of original sin. Of course, he refused. Bai Pu also looked down on the so-called missionary merits. What's the use of merits without reputation? The real good things are not open at all. It's better to take advantage of the fire and grab some benefits. In short, Bai Pu does not accept any form of freeloading. Chapter 288. I like the term equivalent exchange. The Holy Thorn is the holy weapon of the Great Virgin of Thorns, and it cannot be given to anyone. Father Arias roared, what I said at the time was, Please give me the holy thorn for you to use, provided that you become one of us. At the same time, Father Arias issued an order to return for help. The two thorn holy warriors leading the team could only retreat with the fanatics. However, Lugo relied on his speed far exceeding these people and followed closely. The sound of the arrows breaking through the air almost never stopped. The battle situation was extremely tense. Bai Pu still stood by and watched. Father Arias finally had no choice but to compromise. Okay, I have a replica of the holy thorn that I can give you. But in exchange, you must do your best to protect the missionary team in the next missionary operation. A bloody hole was drilled out of Father Arias's round body, and a weapon in the shape of a thorn and blood red all over was handed to Bai Pu's hand. I like the word equivalent exchange. Bai Pu stretched out his hand and took the thorn weapon. Holy thorn, imitation, rent, equipment quality, heroic, gold, equipment requirements, basic strength 40, basic stamina 40, equipment location, one-handed, attributes, additional attack power 1428, additional skill 1, endless suffering, passive, the wearer of this weapon and the target attacked by this weapon will suffer great pain. Comma, additional skill 2, cruel admonition, actively activated, the wearer of this weapon and the target attacked by this weapon will suffer a gradually increasing loss of life, while the ability to comprehend combat expertise and skills will gradually increase. Comma, durability. 93/100, description, only those who overcome pain are qualified to be enlightened. Comma, under the two words rent on this weapon, there is another line of small words, you must protect Father Arias and complete the side quest, missionary before you can obtain the ownership of this equipment. Before that, you can only use it on lease, and Father Arias has the right to stop renting it at any time. After Father Arias stops renting, the attributes and skills of this equipment will be in a gray and unavailable state. Bai Pu took a quick look and knew that this equipment, like the practice heavy sword and discipline stick, is an auxiliary training equipment, but the grade is higher. At present, Bai Pu cannot take this weapon out of this world. He can only take it away after the task is completed. After receiving the imitation holy thorn, Bai Pu must do something. The Blood River territory is open. Under the phantom of the Bloody River, the Thorn Cutter fell into deceleration state, while the Thorn missionary team gained 45 points of acceleration. The effect of Chen Ji's ultimate skill nature's enemy was crushed again, and the strength of trees and vines to hinder binding was greatly reduced. There is still a border town prodigal who has not made a move yet, and he should be lurking in the dark. However, if the leader of the Thorn Cutter is killed, the other side will definitely lose this battle, and it will be too late for the border town prodigal to make a move. Bai Pu suddenly raised his hand, so. General. Lasso strike. Lugo, who was shooting arrows not far away, suddenly changed his expression. He felt the air around him suddenly tighten, knowing that something was wrong, and quickly jumped and fled backwards. Bai Pu grabbed back only a wooden dummy. Obviously, Lugo, a thorn cutter, is stronger than Father Arias of the same template, because he has practiced more skills, unlike Father Arias, who is a deformed level 7 warrior. While jumping back and using the dummy to escape, Lugo was able to draw his bow and shoot arrows in the air. An arrow broke through the air and blocked the enemy's pursuit. Bai Pu suddenly jumped up, and the blood-colored gale formed by the wind stepping slash blew away the arrow. He swung his greatsword in the air, and the second stage of the wind stepping slash was activated, suddenly catching up with Lugo. After landing, the gale blew Lugo up. Activating the cutting, Bai Pu's greatsword crisscrossed, and two swords directly damaged Lugo's armor by 60 points, leaving two terrible wounds on Lugo's body. This is Bai Pu's attack in sword and shield mode. The damage is not the peak, but it also knocked off nearly 1,000 health points of Lugo. At the same time, the blood spider sent a 3-shot burst from a distance, and 3 layers of septic poison hung on Lugo. At this time, Lugo's wind control technique has been used, and another life-saving skill back jump was also forced out by Bai Pu. Although he has 8 skills, he no longer has the ability to move away. Although his agility is as high as 105 points, under Bai Pu's Blood River territory plus the 3 layers of poison of the blood spider, his speed is already at a disadvantage. He can only rely on his own high agility and high combat expertise to dodge Bai Pu's attack, and he is in a mess for a while. But at this time, the border town prodigal suddenly rushed out. His goal is to take the blood spider directly. The border town prodigal thought very simply. Gaixin drove away Lan Feng, who he protected, and he wanted to get rid of the blood spider protected by Gangson. What's more, Lan Feng was forced to flee, which was directly related to the blood spider. Moreover, doing so can play the role of besieging Wei to save Zhao, and can also solve Lugo's dilemma. This is what the border town wanderer thought. But Bai Pu did not rush back to defend as the border town wanderer thought. This is not because he believes in the strength of the blood spider. But Bai Pu took into account the difficulty of this world. If the blood spider can be solved by the border town wanderer in a few moves, then continuing to follow will not be of any use. No matter how well he's distracted to protect, what's the point? All Bai Pu can do is throw back the shield in his left hand. Spin throw level 4 go for broke. After all, I received a 3-star skill book from the Wuxian goddess, so I can help if I can. The dark gold tower shield, vigilance of the demon spider queen, whistled out, wrapped in a mixture of dark gold and blood-colored light, and crashed straight into the border town wanderer. The border town wanderer hurriedly jumped up to avoid it. After the shield landed, a circle of circular shock waves unfolded, and the border town wanderer was repelled, and at the same time, a layer of deceleration effect was attached. The priority of the deceleration effect is as high as 8 points. Pervert. Border town wanderer gritted his teeth secretly, and felt envious again. However, this is not the end. The dark gold shield was inserted into the ground at an angle, and the additional skill, Demon Power Release, was activated. The pattern of the demon spider queen on it seemed to come alive, and the phantom of the weapon spirit appeared, screaming and throwing pale spider webs at Bai Pu's enemies. Enemy covered by spider webs, whether it was Border Town Wanderer or the Thorn Slasher team, fell into a fixed state. Although they could attack or cast spells, they could not move. And they were constantly sucked of health by the phantom of the demon spider queen. At the same time, a dark gold light gate appeared, and 2 enhanced spider demons crawled out of the light gate. Each spider demon is similar to the original form of the demon spider woman, half human and half spider. After they appeared, they rushed directly in front of Border Town Wanderer, and their 8 spider legs stabbed wildly. Chapter 289 6 more skills like this. The Border Town Wanderer instinctively cast the control release skill, but he received a cold reminder. The total priority of your control release item, Galvan Family Crest, is 7, and the total priority of the control skill attached to the target equipment, Spider Web Trap, is 9. You cannot release the control immediately, but the duration of the spider web trap you endure will be reduced by 50%, leaving 2.5 seconds. How can it be 9 points of priority? This is a dark gold equipment. The Border Town Wanderer's eyes widened, staring at the dark gold tower shield inserted diagonally into the ground. In an instant, jealousy, resentment, and anger all surged into his heart. But he didn't have time to exclaim. During the 2.5 seconds, the blood spider had already put away the crossbow, raised his hand to touch his thigh, and 2 daggers with green light flashing had been unsheathed, slashing at the Border Town Wanderer. Fortunately, the Border Town Wanderer could still attack and defend. He waved his sword to parry the attacks of the blood spider and the 2 enhanced spider demons, and planned to endure these 2.5 seconds. However, blood spider's 2 daggers suddenly crossed, slid down along the edge of Border Town Wanderer's sword, and slid into the inner circle of the sword. It was obvious that she was bullying Border Town Wanderer because he could not move during this period. With 2 hissing sounds, blood spider's 2 daggers left cross wounds on Border Town Wanderer's chest, and at the same time, her 2 daggers glowed green. Border Town Wanderer felt a pain in his chest, and a stream of blood gushed out, pouring on the 2 daggers. You are affected by blood spider's set weapon skill, Plunder, and your main attribute is reduced by 18 points for 30 seconds. The reduced attribute will be transferred to the bonus of the Blood Plunderer set in equal amounts. Border Town Wanderer's face changed again. This addition and subtraction created a 36-point attribute gap. He and Blood Spider are both level 6 heroes with agility specialties. Originally, the attribute difference was not much, and Border Town Wanderer even had a slight advantage, but now the trend of strength and weakness has completely reversed. Blood Spider activated the enhanced gain skills one after another, and his own agility attribute broke through the 120-point mark. His figure was erratic, like a ghost. Border Town Wanderer could only passively defend under the disadvantage of attributes, struggling. Chen Jian, help me delay for 30 seconds. Border Town Wanderer shouted. His sword released sharp winds at the same time, and he had opened the Windblade secret without considering the loss, forcing the blood spider not to attack forcefully at the cost of doubling the professional energy. Fortunately, the other thorn cutters also got rid of the spider web trap at this time and helped him take the attack of the two enhanced spider demons. Chen just stood on the top of a big tree. At some point, she had stopped the secret skill of the enemy of nature. Facing Border Town Wanderer's call for help, Chenja ignored it and turned her eyes to the battle between Bai Pu and Lu Jia. Raising her hand and pointing, a small vortex with a green light flashing appeared above Chenji's head, and a wooden spear with green new leaves stretched out from it and flew towards Bai Pu. The speed of this wooden spear was not fast, and Bai Pu didn't care. He activated the two major accessory skills, Sting of the Manticore, and Evil Eyes of the Giant Crocodile, and with the high attack power of holding the knife with both hands, he had already forced the level 7 warrior Lugo into panic, with several deep wounds on his body that could be seen to the bone. The wooden spear flew over, and Bai Pu changed his position to avoid it. However, the tip of the wooden spear kept changing direction as Bai Pu dodged, always pointing at Bai Pu, just like it had a navigation system installed. Bai Pu could only stop his attack, slash back with a knife, and chop at the wooden spear. However, when the blade hit the wooden spear, it was like hitting a layer of phantom. It turned out that this wooden spear was not a summoned entity, but was condensed from pure natural energy. Bai Pu chopped at the wooden spear, just like chopping at flowing water. After the blade passed, the wooden spear was still intact. The next second, the wooden spear fell on Bai Pu's chest. Bai Pu instantly felt a tightness in his chest, as if a seed had drilled into his chest, taking root and sprouting, trying to grow out of his chest. Fortunately, Bai Pu was in the state of releasing the Blood River Territory's Dao Qi at this time. The Blood River Dao Qi was flushing and running, suppressing this natural spell seed and consuming its energy. Because Bai Pu had a higher priority, the Blood River Dao Qi was purer than Chen Ji's natural energy, so the suppression effect reached 66.7%. Although the damage of this spell was still there, the duration was only 33.3%. In the end, a small sapling grew out of Bai Pu's chest, but it stopped growing because of the exhaustion of energy. Bai Pu glanced at Chen Jet, held the dead sapling with one hand, and suddenly pulled it out of his chest. The tiny roots of the sapling brought up flesh and blood gushed out happily. However, Bai Pu's endurance was as high as 90 points at this time, and the strong muscles in his chest automatically closed the blood vessels to prevent subsequent bleeding. Bai Pu's health was knocked down by 319 points by the wooden spear, and he lost another 408 points by pulling out the sapling. The piercing pain came, but it was nothing to Bai Pu. What he was really wary of was the powerful attacking ability displayed by Chen Jia. This one skill knocked out 727 of his health points. If it weren't for the suppression of the Blood River Dao Qi, this sapling would have taken longer to grow. If the sapling was pulled out at that time, it would have lost more than 1,000 health points at once. If she comes with 6 more such skills, my 3,000 health points will be gone. After Bai Pu was hurt this time, he had already stored the adaptive evolution state for wood damage. The next time Chen Jia attacked, he could use adaptive evolution to reduce the damage by half. Being delayed by Chen Jia, the Thorn Slasher warrior Lugo, whose health points were nearly half, fled in a hurry and had already escaped dozens of meters. But he couldn't run away. A blue light flashed on Bai Pu's shoulder guard, and the collision skill attached to the shoulder guard was activated. Like a heavy truck, it crashed into Lugo directly. During the collision, he is immune to the deceleration effects below priority 7. Although Chen Jia tried his best to use a deceleration skill attached to his equipment, he could only look at the word immune and sigh helplessly. Lugo's body was knocked back a little, and Bai Pu's greatsword slashed back, triggering the wind-seeking special effect, knocking Lugo back and staggering. The last blow was wrapped in the strong Blood River fighting spirit, triggering the mountain collapse special effect. Lugo's body suddenly stiffened, and then a large ball of blood burst out from his chest, and he fell to the sky and died. A large golden treasure chest floated out. Bai Pu reached out to pick up the treasure chest and turned his head to look. On the other side, the situation of the battle between the Blood Spider and the Border Town Wanderer was reversed. The Border Town Wanderer survived the 30-second attribute weakening at the cost of more than half of his professional energy loss. At this time, Bai Pu was chasing Lugo, and the Blood River territory no longer covered this place. Only the demon power attached to the Dark Gold Tower shield was released, and the spider web thrown out still had a certain stickiness, absorbing life value. Feeling that his body had returned to normal, the Border Town Wanderer could not help but sneer, and the sword suddenly brought up a green windblade phantom and slashed over. Blood Spider raised her 2 daggers to block. Her skills were completely fine, and the 2 daggers accurately blocked the point where the sword was least likely to exert force. This was a perfect parry. However, the green windblade phantom passed the defense of the 2 daggers and slashed out with the remaining force. Swish! 2 bloody marks appeared on the surface of Blood Spider's body. You are Blood Spider, right? The one from the East Sea Witch family. The Border Town Wanderer sneered. You have a good foundation and your combat expertise is not low. But in front of my windblade secret, you are still vulnerable. Chapter 290. Are you waiting for love? After the Border Town prodigal son declared victory at halftime, he immediately launched a pursuit. The edge of his sword was ordinary when it was chopped out, just wrapped in a layer of light breeze, but when the Blood Spider tried to parry, this entangled breeze would immediately turn into a sharp wind blade, passing over the Blood Spider's parrying weapon and hitting the Blood Spider's body. The Blood Spider had to give up parrying and could only dodge every attack from the Border Town prodigal son. 2 high-agility heroes, if one can only dodge and even avoid weapon parrying, will inevitably be at a disadvantage. Haha, you're not running yet? Are you waiting for love? The Border Town prodigal son shouted happily, if you don't run, I'll kill you. Then you won't be able to run away even if you want to. This is actually a psychological tactic. The Border Town prodigal son has been fighting until now, and he can't wait to kill the Blood Spider immediately. Of course, he can't be merciful. The reason why he didn't use his ultimate move to kill was just to save professional energy for the subsequent treatment of Father Arias and Bai Pu. Blood Spider gritted her teeth and supported herself, while secretly glancing in the direction of Bai Pu from the corner of her eyes. Seeing that Bai Pu had killed Lu Jack, Blood Spider was refreshed. She raised her hand and put a dragon hunting mark on Bai Pu, then ran towards Bai Pu. When moving towards the target with a dragon hunting mark, the movement speed will increase by 25 points. The agility of Blood Spider and Border Town Wanderer is not much different, and this 25 points of movement speed can definitely widen the gap. Border Town Wanderer chased for a few steps and found that it was hopeless to catch up. He was about to turn around, and suddenly the phantom of the Blood River rushed over. When Blood Spider fled in the direction of Bai Pu was also rushing over. This wave was indeed a two-way rush. When killing Lu Jack, in order to save the Blood River fighting spirit, Bai Pu did not fully expand the Blood River territory, and only about half of the area was used. This caused the Border Town Wanderer to misjudge. He thought he was still safe, but in fact he had entered the coverage of the Blood River territory. As we all know, the enemy's deceleration is equal to our acceleration. If the enemy slows down while we accelerate, it means that the enemy is imprisoned. Father Arias was overjoyed when he saw Bai Pu kill Lugo, thinking that the imitation of the Holy Thorn Flower was worth it. Seeing that Bai Pu's Blood River Phantom wrapped up the Border Town Wanderer again, Father Arias couldn't help but roar, "This blasphemer ran away last time, this time we must cut off his head. Okay, as long as you help me hold the other one." Bai Pu was referring to Chenjia standing on the big tree. Father Arias is a long-range magic profession, and he is professionally matched to deal with Chenjia. His tentacles gathered and the cracking light shut out. Chenjia hadn't recovered at this time. The ultimate spell Wild Growth that she had just used to attack Bai Pu consumed a lot of energy. Facing the fierce cracking light, she didn't dare to take it head-on. A vine wrapped around her waist and floated away lightly. It looked like the forest was actively protecting him. Bai Pu took a big step forward, and caught up with Border Town Wanderer in a few steps, and slashed with a knife. Border Town Wanderer had no choice but to give up Blood Spider and fight with Bai Pu. But Blood Spider got the output space, and immediately put away the double daggers, raised the crossbow again, and fired a few shots, which made Border Town Wanderer very annoyed. When he really fought with Border Town Wanderer, Bai Pu also felt the pressure. At least Bai Pu's normal state was difficult to win. Border Town Wanderer's two-handed swordsmanship was advanced level 7, while Bai Pu was advanced level 6. Bai Pu opened a wave of gene fusion, pushing the two-handed swordsmanship expertise to advanced level 8. As for the pure blood, keep it first, this thing takes 48 hours to generate a drop. However, Bai Pu also encountered the same dilemma as Blood Spider, that is, it was very disadvantageous to parry. The damage of the wind blade would pass through the parried weapon and fall on Bai Pu's body. Bai Pu fought with Border Town Wanderer for several rounds, and 3 more wounds of curled flesh appeared on his body. The Border Town Wanderer secretly groaned. His professional energy was running low. Looking at Bai Pu's thick skin and flesh, he was afraid that even if his energy bar was emptied, he would not be able to wear down Bai Pu's health bar. But Bai Pu changed his tactics first. He no longer dodged or parried, and took all the attacks from the Border Town Wanderer. In return, he had the right to attack without any scruples. Bai Pu was already strong and powerful, and his +8 chainsaw sword had an explosive damage. Even a level 7 warrior with a health value of nearly 5,000 points was quickly killed by Bai Pu. How could the Border Town Wanderer dare to get close to him? He slashed several times lightly, and Bai Pu only slashed with one sword, and he hurriedly put away his sword and retreated. Damn it, if my true energy was not running out, would you dare to be so arrogant? The Border Town Wanderer was angry. Where's Chen Jet? Come and save him. If I'm gone, you won't be in a good situation either. However, what he waited for was a confession from Father Arias, who was free. Chen Jet had already slipped away. It must be said that in this twisted jungle, the strength of forest sage Chen Jet has been greatly increased. At least her ability to save her life has been greatly increased. Seeing that the situation was not good, she successfully slipped away under the cover of the forest. The Border Town Wanderer's control release has been used up. At this time, in the illusion of repentance, he can only watch Bai Pu slash at him with a knife. The chainsaw sword is still wrapped with heavy blood-colored energy, and it slashes down with the might of a mountain collapse. Collapse of the mountain special effect. How can he attach energy to his normal attack? His specialty is obviously not at level 7. The Border Town Wanderer activated the power of the God's Envoy, and this question was still lingering in his mind when his figure faded and disappeared. After killing the Border Town Wanderer, Bai Pu put away the Blood River territory. Fighting for a long time when the Blood River territory is open also consumes a lot of Blood River's fighting spirit. The Church of Thorns is no longer hindered, and most of the incoming Thorn Slashers were killed. Only a few people escaped with the cover of the trees, and Bai Pu and Blood Spider were too lazy to chase them. You did a great job. I believe this battle will teach the blasphemers a bloody lesson. Father Arias changed back to human form, nodded with satisfaction and said, especially the blasphemer Lugo who used a bow and arrow. His name is in the church's sinner's register. I'll pay you for the job, and I'll give you this head. Bai Pu's words were concise and to the point, and the language translation function of the spiritual worlds will also translate his words faithfully and elegantly. Haha. Father Arias was originally heartbroken for the imitation of the Holy Thorn, but after hearing Bai Pu's words, he felt a lot more comfortable. He unceremoniously ordered 2 Thorn fanatics to cut off the heads of Lugo and the Border Town prodigal son and prepare to take them back to the church to claim credit. Bai Pu didn't want to take credit for this, mainly because his reputation couldn't be raised, and it was useless to take it, so it was better to use it to dispel the bad feelings of some priests. It would be convenient to grab a handful next time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Slap Yourself, Double the Happiness. The following missionary activities went smoothly. Chen Jet probably knew the difference in strength and did not attack again. Bai Pu accompanied the team to escort, and what he did every day was very simple, that is, to hide himself with the imitation Holy Thorn. Blood Spider could not take this imitation Holy Thorn, because her basic attributes were not up to standard. Therefore, Blood Spider could not help Bai Pu practice, and she was quite disappointed. Bai Pu tried to activate the active effect Cruel Admonition of the imitation Holy Thorn, and found that the loss of life increased by seconds. In the first second, 1 life point was lost, in the second second, 2 life points were lost, and in the third second, 3 life points were lost. This is real damage, with an additional priority of 3 points. When Bai Pu holds it, it is 8 points of real damage with a priority of 8 points. Any damage reduction skills that do not exceed 8 points of priority will not take effect. Here comes the key point. Bai Pu holds the imitation Holy Thorn and hits himself. He is both aware of the equipment and the target of the equipment, which means that he has to bear the double life loss effect. With Bai Pu's 3,000 health points, he couldn't last more than a minute. Even with a keratin skin that reduced sharp damage, he could only last for 70 or 80 seconds. Fortunately, Bai Pu could really feel that the growth rate of combat expertise and skill proficiency had become faster, especially in the later stage. The faster the health loss, the greater the increase. Hitting yourself doubles the speed of life loss, but the increase in comprehension also doubles. Double the happiness is. Not to mention, this feeling of rapid strength is quite fascinating. But Bai Pu still tried it briefly and didn't keep turning on the cruel admonition. Because this is the world of original sin, he has to ensure that his condition is intact and his blood volume is healthy. Originally, Bai Pu was still thinking that the life loss effect of this equipment is so powerful, why not use it to fight the boss and drag the boss to live together with the world? But after actually getting it and studying it, Bai Pu found that the life loss effect of this imitation holy thorn can only take effect when the other party is willing to accept the admonition. Yes, this is actually a gain skill. Think about it, the holy thorn is a sacred weapon used by the Church of Thorns to enlighten believers. Imitations are naturally special practice weapons like the discipline stick and the practice heavy sword. It is unrealistic to use them in actual combat. After the battle between Bai Pu and the border town Wanderer, the iron skin was upgraded to level 3, limit breaker +1, and currently has 27 points of natural armor. Active activation can obtain 14 points of fixed physical damage reduction. He did not relax. On the way to preach, he continued to whip himself with the thorns to accumulate the proficiency of the iron skin and strive to reach level 4 as soon as possible. On the way, Bai Pu opened Lugo's treasure chest while camping and resting. Bai Pu got 2 chances to draw and could exclude 14 undervalued cards. This is already very good. In the intermediate spirit world, Bai Pu may not have the option to exclude undervalued cards when fighting a level 6 enhanced leader. At most, there are only 2 chances to draw. Lugo's treasure chest first gave Bai Pu 14,520 spiritual points, and then the 2 draws were also quite satisfactory. In the first draw, he got 2 golden strengthening crystals. In the second draw, he got a 3-star skill book, Storm Arrow. Bai Pu had seen this skill before. It can shoot arrows with wind and thunder attributes. It is very powerful, with knockback effect and subsequent paralysis effect of thunder power. However, the training conditions of this skill book are also very harsh. It requires the practitioner to have at least one of the wind and thunder attributes. After understanding, the relevant aspects of the skill will be strengthened according to the practitioner's existing secrets. For example, if the practitioner understands the wind secret, the knockback effect and direct damage will be strengthened. If the practitioner understands the thunder secret, the paralysis effect and continuous thunder damage will be strengthened. Bai Pu already understands the concept of secret, which is a skill to make good use of professional energy. The premise is to be able to attach energy to ordinary attacks, similar to the collapse of the mountain special effect. After the general awakener reaches the advanced level 7 of combat expertise, he will be more proficient in controlling professional energy and can attach it to ordinary attacks to enhance the power. But this does not mean that the secret has been mastered, it only means that the conditions for mastering the secret have been met. In addition to increasing the power of skills and turning them into powerful secret skills, the secret also manifests itself in the power of skills in every move, which is of course difficult for ordinary awakeners to resist. Bai Pu felt that he was not far from the secret. Although his combat expertise had not yet reached level 7, he had already comprehended the special effect of collapsing mountains. His way of calling on professional energy was more skillful than that of ordinary intermediate awakeners, which was actually the prerequisite for comprehending the secret. Bai Pu could not use this skill book. He wanted to sell it to the Blood Spider, but the Blood Spider did not have the Wind and Thunder secret either. It was not Bai Pu's style to force a sale, so it could only be temporarily covered in dust in Bai Pu's storage space. 2 days later, the missionary team returned to Myaolan City. When the 30 Thorn recruits returned to Myaolan City, Bai Pu received a prompt that he had obtained 250 merits. Bai Pu did not care about the merits, because he could not exchange them for good things anyway. What made him happy was that the rental status of Holy Thorn, imitation, had disappeared, and Bai Pu had obtained its ownership, that is, the psychic resonance had been completed and it could be taken out of this world. Father Arias carried 2 stinking heads and ran to the bishop excitedly to ask for credit. The bishop verbally praised Father Arias and then kept Bai Pu. "Did you kill the blasphemer named Lugo?" Bishop Aquino asked. Bai Pu still had a strong sense of contract and shook his head and said, No, this is all the credit of Father Arias. Young man, don't be too humble. With Arias' ability, it's difficult to defeat Lugo, let alone kill him. Bishop Aquino looked at Bai Pu with a wise look that saw through everything. You did a good job. You are qualified to participate in the next suffering ceremony. I hope you can open your heart, embrace suffering, and truly become one of us. Yes. Bai Pu was still quite interested in the suffering ceremony. He was not afraid of danger either, because he knew in advance that the people who participated in the tribulation ceremony were all thorn recruits, ordinary people with the standard level 6 templates they brought back. These thorn recruits were all fanatics selected from various villages. In the tribulation ceremony, most of the thorn recruits would die, and only a small number of recruits would be able to cross the threshold from intermediate to advanced and template upgrade, and transform into level 7 elites, thorn fanatics. There are also very few talented recruits who will be blessed by God, obtain a twisted true body, and become level 7 enhanced elites, thorn holy warriors. As for higher warrior templates, there are too few, and even 10 tribulation ceremony may not produce a warrior. It is impossible for enhanced warriors to appear in the tribulation ceremony of Mulan City, because Bishop Aquino only enhances the warrior level template. Bai Pu's confidence lies in his strong survivability. Since those weak recruits have a certain survival rate, let alone Bai Pu. Even if a small probability event occurs, such as Bai Pu being focused on by Bishop Aquino and unable to hold on, he can use divine power to leave here. Chapter 292 True Damage. Mulan City, Thorn Church. Suffering Wish Chapel. A full 100 thorn recruits, including Bai Pu, neatly lined up in 10 rows and 10 columns, each sitting on the ground, waiting for the suffering ceremony. Bai Pu was one of them. The expressions of the thorn recruits were different, some were excited, some were fanatical, some were nervous, and some were afraid. Next to Bai Pu, there was a fanatical recruit, a thin girl about 14 or 15 years old, with a broken right arm. She knelt on the ground, her lips trembling as she muttered, "Praise the Virgin Mary, praise suffering." Bonnie is willing to open her heart to welcome the arrival of suffering, and only ask the great God to have mercy and grace, so that Bonnie's right hand will get better soon. Bai Pu narrowed his eyes. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Bai Pu feels that this girl is very special. The evidence is, the 3 priests surrounding the field, including Father Arias, have sneaked glances at this girl more times than the other thorn recruits combined. These 3 priests are responsible for maintaining order, and when they are bored, they will also find some fun for themselves. For example, they would assess the potential of the new recruits of the thorns, bet on who could pass the ceremony and who could be promoted to the thorn saint warrior. Could it be that this disabled girl, Bonnie, has particularly strong potential? Bishop Aquino entered the scene. He first gave a very infectious speech, the theme of which was the old-fashioned praise of suffering. Although the copywriting was poor, it was very inciting with Bishop Aquino's high spiritual power. Bai Pu, relying on his spiritual power talent, vaguely felt that there was some kind of spiritual connection between the 3 priests present and Bishop Aquino. With this connection, Bishop Aquino temporarily pushed his spiritual attributes to the limit. Moreover, most of these charlatans also have the passive ability to strengthen spiritual suggestion and consciousness bewitching. If Bai Pu didn't know the truth, he might not be able to withstand this collective spiritual suggestion. You are all devout believers who have experienced many tests. Now you will personally experience the gift of God. Close your eyes and feel it. Feel the pain and torture in your spiritual world. Don't worry and imagine. In reality, you may lack the courage and dare not break common sense to embrace suffering. In the spiritual world, you can imagine without any worries. No matter how severe the suffering is, it will not be reflected in reality. This is the suffering ritual, a ritual that helps you quickly complete the transformation and obtain the grace of God. The believers closed their eyes one by one. Bai Pu also closed his eyes. Suddenly, he felt that a spiritual force had invaded his spiritual world. This spiritual force obviously came from Bishop Aquino. He did not personally put his consciousness in, otherwise, if the consciousness was split into 100 parts, Bishop Aquino would not be able to bear it no matter how strong he was, and his consciousness would only dissipate. The purpose of this spiritual force is to help Bai Pu build a spiritual world. Generally, the minds of thorn recruits are floating, and the spiritual world is not stable enough, so external forces need to intervene to form a stable spiritual world. Isn't this the genetic mind image? Bai Pu suddenly thought of the first level of his talent tree, The genetic mind image, which is to unfold his spiritual world of fighting with the strong through meditation. In the spiritual world, the training results of combat expertise will be reflected in reality. So Bai Pu immediately determined that Bishop Yakino was lying. He said that the torture endured in the spiritual world would not be reflected in reality, which was pure nonsense. The purpose is to allow the new recruits to endure the suffering in the spiritual world without worry and increase the promotion efficiency of the suffering ceremony. As for how many new recruits died in the process, it was not within the consideration of Bishop Yakino. Bai Pu closed his eyes, but he unfolded his genetic mind image, and at the same time, with the help of Bishop Yakino and the three priests' mental tentacles, he secretly observed the spiritual world of others. This is a reverse peeping. Bishop Yakino and the three priests are equivalent to servers. Their mental tentacles and the connection of everyone are equivalent to network cables, and Bai Pu's consciousness is equivalent to an invading hacker. Bai Pu's genetic mind image has a very high priority. As a metaphor, this hacker is extremely clever, and the wind passes without a trace. Bishop Yakino, the server administrator, can't find it at all. As for Bai Pu himself, he naturally imagined himself being whipped by the holy thorn. Bai Pu unfolded the attribute panel, and the skill proficiency of Skin of Steel on it was indeed increasing. Skill proficiency can actually be reflected in reality. This has an extra effect on the genetic image. It should be constructed more perfectly with the help of the spiritual power of Bishop Yakino and others. This situation is rare. Bishop Yakino's spiritual attributes at this time are probably close to those of the spiritual lords. Where can Bai Pu find a high-level lord with spiritual expertise to serve as a server for him? With his proficiency increasing rapidly, Bai Pu even felt that his skin was gradually becoming tougher. This rapid strengthening and visible progress was quite fascinating. However, Bai Pu still counted the seconds and calculated the duration of the cruel admonition of the holy thorn, imitation. The life-lost time that Bai Pu in the spiritual world can bear cannot exceed 30 seconds. What if Bai Pu indulges in the pleasure of becoming stronger and the duration exceeds the range of his life value, resulting in the death of Bai Pu in the spiritual world, which is likely to be reflected in reality, causing the real Bai Pu to bleed to death? Every time 30 seconds pass, Bai Pu resets his own state in the spiritual world, that is, reopens the genetic image to meditate. This was equivalent to using Bishop Yakino's spiritual power for free, which made Bishop Yakino very surprised. The spiritual power of this suffering ritual was depleted very quickly. But he couldn't find out what was wrong, because he had tried his best to maintain 100 spiritual tentacles. He could only attribute it to the high potential of the new Thorns recruits this time. Your combat skill, Iron Skin, has been upgraded to level 3. Based on your hidden title, Limit Breaker, this skill is automatically upgraded to level 4. Please draw special effects. Swish. A series of special effect options unfolded. The previous ones were all very ordinary special effects. After all, although Bai Pu had experienced battles since learning Iron Skin, the number of battles was not many, and the intensity was not too strong. At most, he had fought with high-level warriors, equals leaders. But under the options, a rare special effect appeared. G-Item, Thorn Skin. When the active effect of Iron Skin is activated, the physical attacks you receive will rebound true damage and return to the attacker. The amount of true damage reflected is equal to the fixed damage reduction points activated by your Iron Skin active effect. Chapter 293, Suddenly Working So Hard? True Damage. Bai Pu was refreshed. True damage ignored armor, resistance, and damage reduction ability. Of course, the latter depends on priority. For example, the gold equipment, strike armor, enhanced to +5 has 15% damage reduction, and the additional priority is 3 points. After Bai Pu puts it on, the priority of this damage reduction effect is 8 points. Bai Pu's skill, Skin of Steel, is a 3-star skill with an additional priority of 3 points. If Bai Pu chooses the effect of Skin of Thorns, the priority of the reflected true damage is also 8 points. According to the principle of restraint priority, true damage restrains damage reduction, so the 15% damage reduction of strike armor +5 will be ignored by the real damage reflected by Skin of Thorns. Only the damage reduction ability with an overall priority of 9 points can reduce the real damage reflected by Bai Pu. The level 4 Skin of Steel provides 36 points of natural armor and 18 points of fixed damage reduction, so the reflected real damage is also 18 points. Originally, Bai Pu was thick-skinned and thick-fleshed, and was not afraid of being hit by the enemy. Now Bai Pu has completed his evolution. With the ability to counterattack, he is afraid that the enemy will not attack. Bai Pu quickly determined the enhancement options for Thorn Skin. At this time, Bai Pu was also mentally exhausted. After all, constantly resetting himself in the spiritual world, although Bai Pu's state in the spiritual world can be restored, the pain of each loss of life will continue to accumulate. Bai Pu was quite satisfied that he could upgrade the Skin of Steel to level 4, Limit Breaker +1, through the Ritual of Suffering, and also got the rare special effect of Thorn Skin. Next, he maintained the spiritual world and slacked off there. Anyway, Bishop Aquino did not have the ability to monitor distractedly. Bored, Bai Pu's consciousness scanned the spiritual worlds of others through the spiritual tentacles. In reality, the Thorn believers still had various concerns, but in the spiritual world, after getting the guarantee from Bishop Aquino, they completely let themselves go, fully showing Bai Pu what human species diversity is. Some of the new recruits of the Thorns took out their intestines from their belly buttons and tied them to a wooden wheel with strange smiles on their faces. Some female recruits locked themselves in the Iron Maiden, a torture device in medieval Europe, and as the Iron Maiden closed, blood pooled under their feet. Others simply jumped into the stinking cesspool, accompanied by maggots and flies. Bai Pu felt that his eyes were not clean. He thought that whipping himself with a thorn was perverted enough, but compared with this group of new recruits of the Thorns, his degree of perversion was still far from enough. Such perverted punishment, without the so-called divine grace, almost killed one by one. The spiritual world was reflected in reality. The screams of the new recruits of the Thorns before they died filled the entire chapel. Bai Pu subconsciously glanced at the one-armed girl named Bonnie next to him. Bonnie's spiritual world was not so perverted. The suffering chosen by this girl was not new. She just tied herself to a wooden pillar and refused to drink or eat. This is one of the 3 great favored ones, and the way for the bound ones to obtain the favor of God. The spiritual world can change the speed of time. It was only a few minutes in the outside world, but in Bonnie's consciousness, several days had passed. She had been imagining the arrival of the favor of God, but there was no response. The double torture of mind and body finally made her lose patience. Bonnie changed the form of suffering. While bound, she imagined an executioner holding a sharp iron hook and a knife. Suddenly so desperate, Bai Pu was a little surprised. Bonnie actually changed the suffering of being bound into flaying. The executioner cut a long and thin piece of meat from Bonnie's body. Bonnie trembled her lips and silently chanted praises to the Virgin Mary and praises suffering, which shows how deeply she was brainwashed. Until her body was bleeding and the boundless pain was about to drown her consciousness, Bonnie finally screamed. She couldn't hold on. Once she couldn't hold on, the spiritual world would be reflected in reality. Bonnie in the chapel had begun to show the tragic scene of being cut into pieces. Bonnie opened her eyes in confusion. This was her last look at the world before she died. A hellish scene appeared in front of her, with various dead Thorn recruits and bloody and broken flesh all over the ground. Bonnie looked down at herself, pieces of flesh and blood were torn off, and her eyes were blank. Why, back to reality, it's like this. Bonnie closed her eyes. In the spiritual world, she began to revolving around and reviewing her life. When she was very young, she was the child of the leader of the Storm Church. Her father always liked to touch her nose and call her sweetheart Bonnie. How tall was her father's figure? Later, the church perished, and she was also taken away by the Thorn Church and put on nun clothes. From then on, she was Sister Bonnie. Sister Bonnie recited the prayer of suffering in the dark dungeon and had a competition with a group of peers to embrace suffering. The rules of the competition were set by the guard, and the winner could get an extra piece of moldy black bread. Of course, the guard was also the only referee. Bonnie's right arm was broken during a competition. But she didn't get to eat the piece of black bread, because she was unconscious for a whole day and night. By the next day, the guard had forgotten this little thing. After years of imprisonment and brainwashing, Sister Bonnie finally grew up to be 14 years old and qualified to participate in the suffering ceremony. At this time, she was new recruit Bonnie. The bishop deceived me. The whole world deceived me. This was Bonnie's last thought before her consciousness dimmed. Suddenly, a voice hit her mind, as if it sounded in her heart, "Do you want to live? Think." Bonnie didn't know where the voice came from, but the instinct for survival made her hold on to the straw. Great Lord of Suffering, are you finally beginning to favor Bonnie? Suffering is just a lie. What I give you now is not the grace of embracing suffering, but the power of evolution. The price you need to pay is to become my slave. Isn't it the grace of the Lord of Suffering? Bonnie was surprised, and quickly agreed to the price because she had no choice. In an instant, a warm force was injected into Bonnie's body. This force carries the vitality to sweep away the ruins. After entering the body, it reawakened Bonnie's consciousness and reunited her figure that was about to dissipate in the spiritual world. Bonnie's body was deformed, or it was evolving. Her originally separated flesh and blood were actually glued together again, but there were more blood stains on her body. Chapter 294 Warrior Bonnie. Bonnie's aura quickly became stronger, from the ordinary template at the beginning, gradually transforming to the elite and enhanced elite templates. This was the first time that Bai Pu had tested the ability of pure blood after lighting up the talent option of Source Blood Apostle. Sure enough, after the job change, the power of pure blood also increased significantly, allowing an ordinary template native to quickly evolve into an enhanced elite template. This is also related to Bai Pu's own enhanced hero template. He is like a river, and pure blood is a tributary that he differentiated from. The water level of the river rose sharply, and the water flow of the tributary would naturally rise sharply. However, the enhanced elite has reached its peak, and pure blood cannot produce leader-level slaves. For slaves above the enhanced elite template, it can only play a role in enhancing attributes. However, what Bai Pu did not expect was that this resurrection allowed Bonnie to pass the test of suffering. The grace of the Lord of Suffering has come. Based on the induction of pure blood, Bai Pu clearly sensed that a powerful twisted force was injected into Bonnie's body, trying to transform her on a large scale in the form of suffering that Bonnie endured. Originally, Bonnie chose the suffering of being cut into pieces. She would be twisted and her true body would be turned into a bloody skeleton, with exposed bones covered with sharp blades. However, under Bai Pu's control, the pure-blooded evolutionary instinct greedily grabbed this twisted power and transformed it into the food for evolution. The evolutionary instinct has a very high priority, and even the energy injected by the gods has no resistance. Of course, this is also the reason why the Lord of Suffering did not pay attention to this place. Bonnie was able to obtain the injection of twisted power purely because she was resurrected from the dead, triggering the conditions preset by the Lord of Suffering. Bonnie's body expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, her bones became slender and strong, and the streamlined muscle outline could be vaguely seen under the skin, like a female leopard, full of explosive power. And Bonnie's originally incomplete right arm actually had a prosthetic limb that flashed with cold metal light. On her metal right hand, there was also a narrow and sharp long knife. This long and narrow knife is similar in shape to the blue-clad sharp long knife that Bai Pu originally used. The blade is as thin as a cicada's wing, and the long and narrow blade looks very good for cutting and chopping. The length of this knife is even more amazing. Bonnie is now 2 meters tall, and the length of this knife is also more than 2 meters. The twisting power of the Lord of Suffering actually has the ability to create things. No wonder there are so many strange twisted monsters. Bai Pu thought silently. Obviously, the appearance of the metal prosthesis is due to Bonnie's deep desire to restore her limbs, so the twisting power is transformed into metal prosthesis. And the sharp long knife is Bonnie's desire for self-protection. She longs for a weapon. And the master who gave her pure blood, Bai Pu, is best at two-handed weapons such as swords. Bonnie's qualifications belong to the agility department. She subconsciously doesn't want to wield Bai Pu's chainsaw sword, so she chooses the sharp long knife as a template. The twisting power is transformed into a 2-meter-long knife according to Bonnie's wish. Originally, the 2-meter-long sword was a two-handed weapon, but due to the special nature of Bonnie's right arm, the metal prosthesis, she can hold the two-handed sword with her right prosthesis without being punished by the reduction of attack power. Bonnie in the chapel still had her eyes closed. Her face was even covered with a metal mask. However, Bonnie in the spiritual world was exactly the same as Bonnie in the chapel. They were both 2 meters tall, covered with metal masks, holding a 2-meter-long sword with a metal prosthesis on her right arm, with slender thighs and a heroic appearance. Thank you for your gift, my master. In the spiritual world, Bonnie knelt on one knee and thanked the existence in the dark. This is not a gift, but an exchange. Bai Pu sent a message in her spiritual world. Now, you still have to play the role of the warrior of the Lord of Suffering, which will provide more convenience for your actions. The suffering ceremony was over. There were only 2 endings for the 100 Thorn recruits. The first was to become a corpse. The second was to be promoted successfully. The first accounted for 90%, and the second was only 10%. Bishop Aquino and 3 priests checked the effect of the ceremony and ordered the newly promoted thorns to come to the front of the stage, one by one. A group of black-robed acolytes came in from the back door, silently carrying the remains of corpses and meat and cleaning the chapel. They sprinkled special spices to cover up the bloody smell. Bonnie watched this scene with some fear. If the master had not intervened, she would have become part of these corpses. Bishop Aquino was a little surprised. He looked at the Thorns recruits one after another and found that they were basically level 7 elite Thorn fanatics. Strange, the loss this time is higher than before. There should be at least 1 or 2 holy warriors, right? Bishop Aquino murmured. Bai Pu and Bonnie, the master and servant, walked at the end, Bonnie in front and Bai Pu in the back. Hey, Sister Bonnie, your aura is so strong. Bishop Aquino looked up at Bonnie, who was 2 meters tall, and rubbed his eyes. Holy Mother, has a Thorn warrior finally appeared in the suffering ceremony I presided over? Bonnie's aura at this time was already at the warrior level, that is, a level 7 leader. Pure blood alone would definitely not achieve this effect, but pure blood transformed the twisted divine power of the Lord of Suffering, and improved Bonnie's template and level. Father Arias and others warmly congratulated Bonnie. At this time, Bonnie was on an equal footing with him. After adapting to the added power, she would surely become a middle-level backbone of the Thorn Church. Bonnie had a blank expression on her face. Fortunately, she was covered by the metal mask. This should be your twisted true body, right? Bishop Aquino asked, what about your human form? Father Arias next to him enthusiastically pointed out, as long as you converge the holy force in your body, you can transform into human form. Bonnie thought about it and converged the holy force in her body. Suddenly, her form shrank and she turned into the thin and disabled nun Bonnie again. Very good, you have excellent potential, worthy of being the daughter of the blasphemer leader Pozo. Bishop Aquino said with satisfaction, from now on, you will no longer be nun Bonnie, but can be called Warrior Bonnie. It was also because Bonnie became a member of the Twisted Monsters, and her previous human emotions would be thrown into the garbage dump, so he talked about Bonnie's origin so openly. Dio, you also got promoted? Let me see, huh? Father Arias said in surprise, how come you didn't get promoted, but you are still alive? Bai Pu's level template did not change at all, only the combat skill, Iron Skin, was upgraded by 1 level, but Father Arias would definitely not be able to see this improvement. Chapter 295 God-Given Cheyenne Ken. Bai Pu certainly knew the reason. He did not open his heart to embrace suffering. It was just a slight touch. If Bai Pu opened his heart and let the Holy Thorn drain his blood, there would be 2 possibilities. First, Bai Pu would die. Second, Bai Pu would survive by chance and be injected with the power of distortion. He might mutate into level 7 Lord and get a codename like the Whipper. By then, the 3 great gods would become the 4 great gods. However, this would be equivalent to giving up the identity of an awakener and becoming a member of the world of original sin. I don't know if I can retain my self-awareness, but I will definitely become a loyal dog of the Lord of Suffering. Bai Pu would definitely not do such a thing. Hearing Father Arias' question, he could only shake his head helplessly. I don't know why. I felt the gaze of God, but I don't know why God looked away and didn't grant me God's grace. Maybe it's because Bonnie is sitting next to you. Bishop Aquino was in a very good mood now, and his wrinkles were almost smoothed out. Bonnie absorbed the God's grace that should have come to you. Bai Pu cooperated and showed a resentful expression to Bonnie. Bonnie's thin body trembled and lowered her head. Bishop Aquino raised his voice and said, Dio, your potential is even higher than Bonnie's. Why didn't you get God's favor? You should learn to reflect, because Bonnie is more pious than you. Bai Pu was full of shame and nodded in agreement. Bishop Aquino also knew the principle of giving a sweet aid after a blow. Seeing that Bai Pu was repentant, he slowed down his tone and said, the Gilded One has sent an order to select potential recruits to go to the God-Given Cheyenne Ken to perform the Holy Artifact mission. Since you have not been promoted, you are still a recruit. This time, you will participate with Charlotte, Moshet, Boger and others to represent the recruits of Mulan City. After you return with honor, I will rearrange a suffering ceremony for you. Bai Pu was a little surprised. The God-Given Cheyenne King is the strange story of the city that disappeared overnight? Have you found out the results of the investigation? Bishop Aquino didn't know much, and said with a straight face, When you and other recruits meet the Gilded One, you will naturally know more. Remember, the task of collecting holy artifacts is supreme. Even if you sacrifice yourself, as long as you can add a little contribution to the fight for the holy artifact, it is the supreme honor. When and who will lead the team? Bai Pu asked the two questions he was most concerned about. Tomorrow, of course, I will lead the team. It is also my honor to meet the great Gilded One, Bishop Aquino said. After a whole night's rest, Bai Pu's fatigue finally disappeared. The next morning, Bai Pu, Blood Spider, and the two fishman heads, Mashed and Boger, led by Bishop Aquino, set out from Wulan City and headed for the god-given Cheyenne Ken. Bai Pu finally met the Gilded One. This Lord Gilded One, who was a little thin and wrapped in a black robe, looked a little weak and had no aura of a high-level lord. But Bai Pu knew that he couldn't just look at the surface, because the Gilded One had completely restrained the holy force. Think about the way he embraced suffering, watering himself with molten gold. I don't know how terrifying it is to twist his true body. At this time, hundreds of Thorn recruits had gathered around the Gilded One, all of whom were drawn from various city-states and were reserve elites with great potential. Bai Pu looked coldly and found that many of them were wrapped in black robes like himself. This kind of hiding, I'm afraid he must be a candidate, right? There is no way to change his appearance and clothing, so he covered himself with a black robe. Because Bai Pu wrapped himself in a black robe for this reason. However, there are also people who don't care about being discovered by other awakened people. A blond man wearing a priest's pointed hat and a red priest's robe smiled and nodded to everyone who looked at him, quite elegant. There was also a tall and burly man standing next to him, like a steel fortress, with a fierce look in his eyes. Bai Pu heard some Thorn recruits talking about this blond man named Yimang and the burly man named Metallica. They came from the city of Fairy. In just a few days, they destroyed two Thorn Slayers' strongholds. Their strength is quite terrifying. Meshed, who was next to Bai Pu, snorted coldly. Obviously, Meshed and Boger must have guessed the details of Yimang and Metallica. They, Bai Pu and Blood Spider, were all candidates for other gods, not allied gods of the Lord of Suffering. Yimang seemed to sense the hostility of Meshed. After a quick glance, his sight finally settled on Bai Pu. He smiled and whispered to Metallica next to him, and then the two of them separated from the crowd and walked over. It's rare to meet an enhanced hero here. Yimang said to Bai Pu with a smile, you must have had an extraordinary experience. Where are you from? Bai Pu asked. I'm from Earth, the United States and Canada Federation. Yimang smiled and didn't shy away. He didn't need to avoid the natives, because these confidential conversations would be blocked. Both of them realized that they had abandoned the main task and chose the Thorn Church camp. It's just that Bai Pu has made arrangements for how to complete the main task, but I don't know where Yimang's confidence comes from. Why did you send us, the intermediate awakeners, to compete for the holy artifact this time? There are many high-level enhanced warriors in the Thorn Church, who are much stronger than us, not to mention lords like the Gilded One. Bai Pu raised his question. I do know some inside information. The lost city reappeared in the god-given cenote. Yimang said with a smile, but more inside information is not free. You want psychic points? Yimang shook his head. I have no shortage of psychic points. What I need is that you help me once after entering the lost city. This kind of information that can be speculated is not worth the price. Bai Pu refused. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Not only can I provide you with the answers to your questions, but I can also provide you with a list of the strong men sent by the Church of Thorns this time. They are all the people they think have the most hope of obtaining the holy weapon. Yimang smiled. This information cannot be measured by speculation. Okay, I agree to provide you with help once without affecting my own interests, but it depends on the value of the information. Bai Pu said. Deal. This kind of transaction that cannot be determined will not be notarized by the spirit world, but Yimang does not seem to value notarization. He said, the lost city is different from ordinary cities. It is a super large maze. Each maze room is connected by multiple light gates. These light gates have strict restrictions on the level of entrance and only allow level 6 life to enter. Yimang raised a finger. This is the answer to your question. Bai Pu nodded silently. As for the list of strong people, with your and my strength, there are not many people who need to be focused on. For example, the two people next to you, Mashed and Boger, the reserve voters from Star and Star, are at the top of the list. There is also a person named Dio, who is also on the list. I think it should be you, Mr. Steelheart. It's me. Bai Pu was surprised. This Yimeng's business inferior city is more in-depth than himself, and he actually knows so much inside information. But there is one person we must be most careful of. There was a trace of fear in Yimeng's eyes. He looked at a man wearing a skull mask not far away, the only official voter here, Rosen. Chapter 296, Rune's Words. Formal elect. Bai Pu was surprised. Intermediate awakeners usually only get a seed blessed by the gods, and have a trace of the thoughts of the gods, which can guide the awakeners on their path at critical moments. This is a reserve elect. There are many reserve electors, but not even 1 in 10 can successfully become a regular. Bai Pu looked at the elect named Rosen, who had a black skull mask on his face, and his true face could not be seen clearly. He was wearing pale bone armor, and his body was filled with an uncomfortable dead silence. The surrounding thorn recruits all made way unconsciously, leaving a large area empty. Which god is he the official elective? Bai Pu asked in a low voice. It's hard to say. Yimeng shrugged. I'll give you another common sense for free, Mr. Steelheart. In the spiritual world, unless necessary, don't ask other voters or reserve voters about the gods behind them. Because there are allies and enemies among the gods. We can cooperate with the elects of opposing gods without knowing the gods behind them, but if we cooperate after knowing the gods, it will be a betrayal and we will be punished by the gods. Bai Pu nodded. He was working alone and didn't care about this. He is the elect of the great Lord of Death. The octopus-headed Mashit on the side suddenly said, the Lord of Death is also the allied god of the Lord of Suffering. Mashit's words were filled with a sense of superiority, but Lord Rosen doesn't need to take action. When we enter the Lost City, Boger and I can deal with you pagans. Boger, the shark-toothed man next to him, also showed undisguised provocation in his fish eyes. Yemen chuckled. Metallica next to him glared at Boger unceremoniously. Just when the atmosphere was tense, the voice of the gilded man rang. Dear devout believers. A lost city is suspended in the sky above the god-given cenote. The oracle indicates that there will be a total of 7 holy artifacts in this place, blessed by God. This is the largest number of holy artifacts since the founding of the Church of Thorns, even comparable to the total number of holy artifacts in the church's inventory. Look! With a wave of the gilded man's sleeves, the rich mimicry of holy waves turned into a 3D phantom of a magnificent suspended city. In the center of the suspended city, on the top of a spire, 7 light balls wrapped in bubbles appeared. Through the light, the items inside can be vaguely seen, including necklaces, axes, and jars. Obviously, these are the 7 holy artifacts. There was a lot of discussion below, and they were obviously stunned by the number of 7 holy artifacts. Bai Pu and other outsiders didn't feel anything yet, but the local Thorns recruits knew it. In the past, only 1 holy artifact would appear in the place blessed by God. The gilded man's voice was sonorous, and he continued, the holy artifact is not so easy to obtain. It has a powerful ancient seal. Believers, you have to enter the lost city, defeat the monsters inside, and collect a kind of sacred text called rune. Then combine it into rune language. Once you get the rune language, you have the qualifications to teleport to the holy artifact hall and unseal the holy artifact. Every new recruit who retrieves the holy artifact will be personally awarded by Our Lady of Thorns. This is the supreme honor. Immediately, a prospective voter raised his hand. Great gilded man, may I ask how the rune language is combined, and is there a necessary order? We have never heard of such a thing. The gilded man pondered for a moment, and said with a serious face, the rune language is not something you can interpret, nor is it something you can learn. I only have some rune language serial numbers and fixed arrangements here, and I will assign them to you. With a wave of the gilded man's hand, the black-robed acolyte handed a parchment scroll to each of the participating Thorn recruits. The gilded man also warned, these parchment scrolls that record the words of rune are marked with your numbers. When you leave the lost city, you can use these numbers to prove your identity. Some prospective voters were curious about the reason for this. The gilded man explained, because the scope of the god-given cenote is too large, and there are too many teleportation entrances to the lost city, it is difficult to completely block it with the power of the church. There is no guarantee that someone will spy on the holy artifact and sneak in. For example, those blasphemer organizations that call themselves thorn cutters. However, there is only one exit from the lost city. I will lead the team personally to block the exit. Bai Pu had a question. This was not safe. What if the thorn cutter snatched the parchment scrolls in the lost city? This question disappeared when he got the parchment scroll. The parchment scroll Bai Pu got was number 17. Following the instructions of the bishops and priests, he dripped a drop of blood on the number 17, and the number immediately radiated light, and a golden 17 was branded on Bai Pu's forehead. Bai Pu felt as if his forehead was burned by a branding iron. Of course, this little pain was nothing to the thorn recruits and voters present. You have obtained the gilded brand. A simple reminder. Bai Pu felt a sense of being spied on, as if he was under a surveillance camera. This was purely a warning based on Bai Pu's perception. It seems that the gilded brand not only has the function of recording numbers, but also has the function of monitoring. It seems that the Thorn Church is also very clear that not every outsider is trustworthy. So the Church uses this method to monitor everyone's actions. Anyone who gets the holy weapon cannot take it away, and will be blocked by the gilded person at the exit. Bai Pu opened the parchment scroll and saw a total of 104 rune patterns recorded on it, and each rune was marked with a serial number. On the far right side of the scroll, a total of 7 rune words were marked. For example, the rune words number 1 plus number 3 plus number 9 plus number 28 can be combined into rune language. Bai Pu wanted to rely on his memory to forcefully remember the pattern of the rune words, but he failed. He forgot the rune words he had just memorized after moving his eyes away from the rune words for just 1 second. Is it so magical? Bai Pu thought of the rune words clay tablet he had obtained at the beginning. The words on it were blurred and difficult to distinguish. He had always regarded it as a ghost painting and just glanced at it. Now that he thought about it, with his memory, he should be able to remember the entire content of the rune words clay tablet even if he only glanced at it a few times. But now that he recalled it, there was actually no trace. No wonder we can't decipher or learn this kind of words. This should be the words of God. Bai Pu thought to himself. Bai Pu carefully observed that the thorn recruits present were all happy to bleed, allowing the gold-plated brand to leave a number on their foreheads. Blood Spider is number 30. Meshit is number 4, and Yemen is number 2. The numbers of both of them were very high. And the official voter named Rosen was number 1. Chapter 297 Challenge the Stone Monument. The Lost City. Bai Pu passed through a teleportation light gate and entered the first room of the Lost City. This room is very large, almost equivalent to the area of 100 Mulan City's Suffering Wish Chapels, which is almost the same as the venue of a large concert in the real world. In the center of the room, there stands a white stone tablet. Bai Pu walked to the stone tablet and saw a series of distorted words like tadpoles on it. Based on the translation function provided by the will of the spirit world, these tadpole words were automatically converted into words that Bai Pu recognized. Touch the stone tablet to start the challenge, and open the portal after killing all source energy creatures. Quantity 10. Type melee physical, energy level 1.2, energy level 1.2. It shouldn't be very strong. Bai Pu felt that the first room he just entered would not be particularly difficult. He looked up and observed that there were no other teleportation light gates in this empty room, only the portal he came from was glowing. If he walked back, he would leave the lost city and go to the only exit at the bottom of the cenote. Bai Pu reached out and pressed the white stone tablet. The stone tablet sank with a roar, and an invisible stream of energy shot out like a fountain, splitting into 10 streams when it landed. 10 rats with bloodshot eyes, half the height of a man, pounced on Bai Pu. Bai Pu opened the 9th chapter of Detection. Violent Rat, Level 2 Elite, Race, Beast Land Beast, Attributes, Strength 16, Agility 22, Endurance 14, Spirit 9, Skills, Bite, Infected Claws, Hard Hair. Bai Pu's guess was confirmed. He drew out the chainsaw sword and called out their names one by one. 10 violent rats died, and the strands of energy flow dissipated. Bai Pu, looked up and saw a teleportation light gate at the end of the room, in front, on the left and right sides. Bai Pu walked forward, stepped into the light gate, and entered another room of the same size. On the white stone tablet in the center, the tadpole character showed that the energy level here was 1.8, the number of enemies was 2, and the melee physical type. Bai Pu pressed his palm on the stone tablet. This time, there were only 2 giant wolves as energy creatures, but they were both level 3 enhanced elites. Bai Pu killed the 2 giant wolves. The energy flowed, but it did not dissipate this time, and finally condensed into palm-sized mysterious text. Bai Pu took out the sheepskin scroll for comparison, and finally confirmed that it was rune number 4. Bai Pu remembered the numbering order of the 7 runes, and did not use the rune number 4. It seems that the energy level of each room in the Lost City represents the overall strength of the monsters. The more monsters there are, the less energy each individual will receive, and the individual strength will be weakened. Bai Pu muttered to himself and put the rune number 4 into the storage space. The will of the spiritual world did not specify this thing, only the name of divine text, and it could not be taken out of this world. Suddenly, in Bai Pu's storage space, the seed of suffering became slightly hot, and the shadow of the messenger Xiaoxia appeared. It seems that you are doing very well and have entered the ranks of those who are competing for the holy artifact. If you can really obtain a holy artifact, don't forget your promise. Bai Pu was not surprised at the appearance of the god envoy Xiaoxia. He also maintained basic respect for the god envoy Xiaoxia and said with a smile, "I have always kept my promises, Lord God Envoy. Did you appear this time to warn me?" Bai Pu held the seed of suffering with his fingers. He clearly remembered that he had a divine power left by the god envoy Xiaoxia, which could force him to leave this world in a critical moment. This divine power could help Bai Pu leave this world, and naturally, under the control of the god envoy Xiaoxia, he could do other things that were not beneficial to Bai Pu. The illusory light face of the god envoy Xiaoxia revealed a smile. "You are very wise, Steel Heart. I admire you more and more." Bai Pu pretended not to hear the hint here. However, in the next second, the reminder of the will of the spirit world suddenly came. The scavenger mission is started. Mission goal, seize the source fragments. Mission difficulty, unknown. Mission deadline, none, equivalent to the remaining time you stay in this world. Mission reward, silver medal 1, amnesty order 1, honor value plus 1,500. Failure penalty, deduct honor value 1,500. If the remaining honor value is insufficient, the rank will be reduced. Bai Pu remained calm and silently inquired about 3 questions. That is, what are the source fragments, silver medals and amnesty orders? This time, the will of the spirit world can be said to know everything. The source fragments are actually the holy artifacts of the world of original sin. The silver medal is 2 levels higher than the black iron medal in Bai Pu's storage space, and can be used for any rank promotion of officers not exceeding the school level. The amnesty order is for those who have not completed the main task. After using it, it can be regarded as completing the main task with the lowest evaluation. The key is that it can be used in the advanced spirit world. The forced escape props of the intermediate spirit world are already very rare. Ordinary awakeners rarely get them, that is, only the big forces with deep enough operations in the spirit world have them. In the advanced spirit world, there are almost no forced escape props. Perhaps, in the judgment of the spirit world, the awakened have grown to level 7 or above, and should be able to complete the first main task. If they fail even the first main task, then there is no value in training. Of course, in the high-level spirit world, failure of the main task does not necessarily mean exile. It is possible that, like Bai Pu encountered this main task, failure will result in a fine of some psychic points. If the psychic point fine is not enough to pay, the equipment or props will be forced to sell. If these are not enough to pay the debt, they will pay with their lives. The psychic point fine is an acceptable punishment for most high-level awakened. But the potential punishment, the awakened who did not complete the main task, all the gains during the main task, including but not limited to psychic points, equipment, and props will disappear, is more severe. The good thing about this, reward is that it is regarded as the completion of the main task, and once the main task is completed, you can leave the spirit world at any time, which is no less safe than forced detachment. And if it is regarded as the completion of the main task, you can keep the gains of this spiritual world exploration, which is even more valuable. Bai Pu frowned and thought for a while, then chose to refuse the task. The reward is good, but unfortunately I have already promised God Envoy Xiaoxia. C-level gold items are really not that easy to get. The Guilder said it clearly. Every participant who collects a rune will be teleported to the platform where the holy artifact is placed. One rune can only unlock the seal of a holy artifact. This means that no matter how strong a person is, he can only get one holy artifact. If Bai Pu had not promised God Envoy Xiaoxia in advance, he would actually be more inclined to complete the task of the will of the spirit world. Bai Pu sighed secretly and continued to move forward. However, in his heart, there was still a guess that had not yet been confirmed. The scavenger task given by the will of the spirit world might not be impossible to complete. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298. Bai Pu is not doing well. In a room in the Lost City, Metallica, in full armor, strode forward like a giant hammer, smashing the dwarven warrior team in front of him. The dwarves were all in armor, wielding hammers taller than themselves to attack. Clang. Clang. The sound of metal colliding was endless. The surface of Metallica's armor was dented by the dwarves' well-made metal hammers, and even fine cracks appeared. However, with a burst of silver-gray energy flowing, Metallica's armor slowly returned to its original appearance, and he had a layer of shield with swirling metal debris on his body. Come on, come on. Let me crush you. Metallica raised the hammer high, and a huge silver-gray cone-shaped shockwave fell to the ground with the hammer. The two dwarves in the front, wearing well-made dwarven armor, were shattered and fell off. Obviously, Metallica's attack had a strong armor-breaking effect. The giant hammer danced wildly with silver-gray energy, and the dwarves spat out blood and flew away one by one. When the last dwarf was smashed away and disappeared in a stream of light, Metallica still felt unsatisfied. He picked up a rune floating in the air. Compare, it seems to be number 19. Metallica took the parchment and looked at the runes at the back. Got it. This rune called Endless Power will use rune number 19. Haha, the rune with strength 2.8 really has good stuff. Next, I just need to collect a rune number 30 to complete the rune of Endless Power. In another room, a strong man wrapped in a black robe flashed continuously and emerged from the shadows of tigers. Each blow hit the vital point of a tiger and dealt high critical damage. However, the tiger's attacks could not even touch the corner of his clothes. In the end, the group of tigers also turned into a rune. The black-robed strong man breathed a sigh of relief, took out a stone tablet, and after comparing it, he showed joy and put away the rune. It's not easy to sneak into the Lost City this time. I have to find a way to put together a set of texts and unlock a holy weapon, so as to strengthen the foundation of the Thornslayer Alliance to fight against a Thorn cult. On the premise of ensuring that I complete the task, I have to kill a few more Thorn recruits. These recruits are not ordinary, they are the elite forces of the Thorn cult, and they may become enhanced warriors at the level of bishops and legion commanders in the future. Killing one more now will make it easier in the future. And these two things are not contradictory. If I kill the Thorn recruits, I can also get the runes they collected from them, which will accelerate the formation of my rune language. After obtaining the holy weapon, send a signal to Lord Boraz. He will create chaos at the exit and help me get out. It's a pity that Lord Bozo and Lord Boraz fell out, otherwise we would have a better chance. The black-robed strong man stepped into the next room. The bottom of the God-given cemetery is the only exit of the Lost City. The Gilded Man led a group of enhanced warrior-level bishops and waited here. The Gilded Man simulated the 3D maze of the Lost City with a holy wave. The densely packed rooms gathered together like a honeycomb. And the different numbers with a gilded brand moved slowly in each room. The labyrinth rooms in the Lost City can be roughly divided into 4 layers. The Gilded Man said slowly, the one we just entered is the outermost layer. It doesn't look very strong, no one has suffered casualties, and the advancement speed is very fast. Of course, the rune numbers that appear on this layer are very low, no more than 10. On the second layer, the monsters that appear are already able to catch up with the strength of the Thorn recruits, and they usually appear in groups. So most people have slowed down. Lloyd, the Bishop of Frail City, codenamed Madness, said, currently, there are only 3 people who have passed the second layer and entered the third layer. If I remember correctly, the number 2 should be Yemen, a rising star in our Frail City. Yemen? I have some impression of him. The Gilded Man said slowly, under his docile appearance, he hides a deep madness. He is a very good seedling. It is not easy for such a good seedling to open his heart and embrace suffering, but as long as he succeeds in being promoted, he will definitely become an existence no less than you. Bishop Aquino of Myulan City also wanted to take credit in front of the Gilded One. He pointed at number 4 who broke into the 3rd floor and said, that number 4 Meshit is also from our Myulan City. And number 11 Boger is also far ahead in the 2nd floor. Meshad and Bogar are both potential rookies sent by the Thorn headquarters. Myulan City is only responsible for the reception. They can't be considered as talents discovered by your city-state. Bishop Frail City, Crazy Lloyd, sneered, I remember the top two people in your Myulan City very clearly. One is number 17 Dio and the other is number 30 Charlotte. They are currently in the middle and lower reaches of the second floor. Bishop Aquino was so angry that his teeth itched, but he also blamed Bai Pu in his heart for not living up to his expectations. He obviously had the powerful combat power to kill the high-level warrior Lugo, so why did he become a coward when he entered the Lost City and won glory for the Myulan City branch? Suddenly, a bishop exclaimed, awesome! Rosen broke through another room. On the third floor, he was not at all challenged, and his speed was almost the same as on the second floor. Rosen's strength is enough to challenge the room on the fourth floor, but he has not entered. Strange, he actually returned to the second floor. A bishop was surprised. In the virtual 3D projection, the number 1 gilded brand representing Rosen actually turned back and shuttled through the many rooms on the second floor. He is collecting low-order runes. The gilded man said, the most difficult runes are high-order characters, but low-order characters are also indispensable. Everyone was amazed. Rosen's combat power is completely different from others. He has mastered 3 extreme mysteries, and the mystery of death has been cultivated to the mastery level. The gilded man nodded with satisfaction and said, this time when he ventured into the Lost City, Rosen will definitely bring back a holy artifact. It's a pity that a person can only enter the Lost City once, otherwise there would be no need for such trouble. Great gilded man, what is the origin of the Lost City? Why are there so many restrictions? And the appearance of 7 holy vessels at once is simply unheard of? A bishop asked. The gilded man's face changed slightly, and he said in a deep voice, this involves the secrets of the Virgin Mary and even the gods. You don't need to know. Even I can only act according to the rules. Do you understand? Chapter 299 Xiaosha's envoy's path has been narrowed. At this moment, Bai Pu, who was considered to be unpromising, had just stepped into the second layer. Bai Pu's idea was very simple. From the composition of the rune language, each rune language requires at least 1 high-sequence rune text of about 30, and 1 or 2 medium-sequence rune texts of about 20. Therefore, the medium and high-sequence rune texts are very important. But the low-sequence rune texts are also indispensable. Each rune language requires at least 2 low-sequence texts below 10. According to the current rules, when choosing a teleportation light gate, the deeper you go into the inner area, the higher the energy level of the room, and the higher the sequence of the rune texts that appear. It is better not to go deeper first, explore the outer area left and right, and collect enough low-sequence texts. It is best to collect all the low-sequence texts required for the 7 rune languages, and then collect the medium-sequence texts. At that time, you can immediately combine a rune language by getting the high-sequence text of any rune language. Bai Pu speculated that the difficulty of obtaining the holy artifact in the Lost City must be not low, and the monster's strength in the room with high energy levels in the inner area must be amazingly high. High-sequence runes are not so easy to obtain. Even if you work hard and use all your cards to get a high-sequence rune, you often cannot match the existing medium and low-sequence runes to form a rune language. Strange, why do I feel that my combat expertise proficiency is increasing faster in this Lost City? Bai Pu took a look and saw that his two-handed sword expertise was already at level 5 and 43% proficiency. He clearly remembered that when he first came in, his proficiency was about 40%. These few low-intensity battles actually increased by 3%? Bai Pu frowned and called the envoy Xiaosha to ask her what was going on. This is normal. Every monster in the room is transformed by divine energy. When killing these monsters, your body will passively absorb a small amount of divine energy. Under the infiltration of divine energy, the techniques you use in battle, even including skills, will be improved to a certain extent. Bai Pu said speechlessly, such an important thing, why didn't you tell me earlier? The envoy Xiaosha did not answer Bai Pu directly, but said, okay, my divine energy is limited and cannot be consumed frequently, otherwise it will affect the safety of the return transmission. Wait until you get the holy weapon, then call me. Bai Pu took a breath. He also figured it out. It was because he was a temporary worker and had not accepted the hint of the envoy Xiaosha to become the elect of the Lord of the Source Water of the Unsullied, so the envoy would not instruct him. This is also in line with the principle of exchange. But Bai Pu still felt that the envoy Xiaoxia's path was narrow. Now, isn't it that the stronger his strength is, the more likely he is to get the holy weapon? Of course there is another possibility. The reserve elects are usually level 6. After a long period of polishing, their main combat expertise and main combat skills have been improved to the limit of their current level. In the Lost City, even if they are infiltrated by divine energy, they will not get any benefits. The envoy Xiaoxia may have forgotten that Bai Pu is not one of those reserve elects who have been polished for a long time. Bai Pu still has a lot of room for improvement. There is no time to think about it anymore. Bai Pu directly opened this level 2.2 stone tablet. Energy condensed and turned into a group of clay puppets, each of which is at the level of a level 5 elite. The skills and techniques used in battle will be additionally improved under the infiltration of divine energy. Bai Pu did not just swing his sword and slash. He deployed an unstable shield, and used 1 round each of wind slash, spin throw, lasso strike, and 3 worlds to end the battle. These skills are of relatively low levels and consume less Blood River fighting ki. With Bai Pu's current total Blood River fighting ki of 700 points, as long as he does not open the Blood River territory, his recovery speed can fully withstand such consumption. The battle is over, and no rune words were condensed this time. Not every room can explode runes. Bai Pu's focus is not on this. After careful perception, Bai Pu felt that there were strands of mysterious energy that infiltrated his body imperceptibly. The two-handed swordsmanship, fighting expertise, and various skills he just used all had visible proficiency growth. Go to other rooms. Looking at the 3 teleportation light gates slowly appearing in the room, Bai Pu chose the left light gate and strode in. After Bai Pu left, the stone tablet that had sunk into the ground rose again, waiting for the next Triless to enter the room. Milan City, the branch of the Thorn Church, has now fallen into a bloody storm. Taking advantage of the emptiness of Milan City, the Thorn Slayer organization launched a massive attack. Bozo. It's the betrayer Bozo. A Thorn Holy warrior rushed to the Chapel of Suffering Wish and shouted to Father Arias, who stayed there. Father Arias's face suddenly changed. Betrayer Bozo, the deputy leader of the Thorn Slayer organization. How could he come here? According to intelligence, the blasphemer intends to rob the holy artifact, and now he should be near the god-given cenote. It is possible that he heard some rumors, such as the news that his daughter Bonnie is in Mulan City. Another priest said, "It should be. Let the warrior Bonnie come out. The most suitable person to deal with Bozo must be her. Even if Bonnie is not an opponent, she can still hold Bozo back." Father Arias said. The Thorn Saint warrior said with a strange look on his face, "I just saw the warrior Bonnie. She is killing the fanatic believers of the church with Bozo." What? The faces of several priests changed drastically. After all, the warriors who have experienced the suffering ritual and transformed into twisted monsters are absolutely loyal to the Lord of Suffering and the Thorn Church. There has never been a case of Thorn warriors rebelling in the past, and even the Thorn Saint warriors who are also twisted monsters have never rebelled. Father Arias shouted, "Impossible." Bang! The door of the chapel was chopped down by the violent blade, and the sun shone directly into the dust. Bonnie had revealed her true body, which was 2 meters tall. Her right arm with a metal prosthetic limb was tightly holding a 2-meter-long knife. She pierced a Thorn fanatic expressionlessly and raised his body high. Boom! The holy force burst out, and the body was torn into pieces. Roar, roar, roar. With 3 roars, the 3 priests completed the transformation at the same time. They shouted, "Destroy the betrayer Bonnie, in the name of the Virgin Mary." Hiss! 3 cracking rays shot out at the same time. But what followed was the howling of the storm. A vortex void was generated, the air was twisted, and the cracking rays were also refracted. Beside Bonnie, a barefoot middle-aged man wearing a simple gray robe and a hunched back appeared. In his eyes, with endless anger, he stared coldly at the 3 priests. "Come on, you unscrupulous beasts, I will return all the pain and suffering my daughter has suffered to you 10-fold and 100-fold. Chapter 300, Are the mysteries still divided into different levels? Lost City. In a room with energy level 2.5. Bai Pu slowly put away his sword and put away the condensed rune. It's rune number 15, a very critical word, and 3 runes can use it. Now, I just need to get another rune number 31, and I can combine this rune called fraud. Bai Pu opened his personal attribute panel. Under the influence of divine power, his various expertise and skills are gradually improving. Among them, the two-handed swordsmanship expertise has been upgraded to level 599%, and it is still rising. Finally, the two-handed swordsmanship expertise has been upgraded to level 6. Bai Pu smiled. The reminder of the spirit world's will came. Because Bai Pu has the title of Limit Breaker, the two-handed swordsmanship expertise plus 1 level can draw the level 7 special effect in advance. A rigid body, you can use professional energy for parrying, at this time the strength judgment value plus 20, and get a fixed point of damage reduction, based on your strength judgment value. B crush, you can use your professional energy to attack. When you hide an enemy, you will cause extra real damage to an enemy whose strength judgment value is less than 50% of yours. C strong wind, you can use your professional energy to increase your attack speed. Your attack speed is plus 15. When you attack with all your strength, your professional energy forms a strong wind, which interferes with the enemy's balance and judgment. H sword key, you can use your professional energy to increase your attack distance. Your attack distance is increased by 50%. The additional attack distance forms an attached sword key, which cannot be parried or blocked, but the damage caused is only equivalent to 50% of the damage caused by the weapon itself. Bai Pu browsed through it carefully and found that these 8 options are all the use of professional energy. When the combat expertise is upgraded to advanced level 7, the awakened will learn to use professional energy to strengthen ordinary attacks, and they will be more free when mobilizing professional energy and master it more skillfully. I have been trying to comprehend the secret of wind. Now I should also choose this direction to speed up my understanding of wind. Bai Pu felt that he was not far from the secret of wind. The secret of wind should be the closest elemental secret to him. He should use all the opportunities to comprehend and strengthen it in this regard. Bai Pu chose option C, strong wind. In an instant, Bai Pu's mind was enlightened. He had a deeper understanding of the use of professional energy to form wind and even the flow of wind. However, Bai Pu still did not comprehend the secret of the flow of wind. Bai Pu casually swung the sword, and the 15 points of increased attack speed were also obvious, that is, the sword was swung more lightly. The heavy chainsaw sword was like a light branch in Bai Pu's hand. This is the flow of wind at work. It's a pity that I still can't be as flexible and changeable as Dongbo Changzi. When my blood river fighting spirit is attached to the sword edge, it always unconsciously becomes heavy. It always turns into the form of collapsing mountains. Heavy as a mountain. Suddenly, Bai Pu felt a heavy feeling of the mountain, which was very similar to his temperament. If I were a mountain. Bai Pu was absorbed in his thoughts. He unconsciously imagined that he was like a mountain, with a 1,000-foot-high wall, letting the waves roar under his feet, and it remained the same for 1,000 years. Bai Pu's temperament gradually approached that of a mountain. A ray of light appeared, and the shadow of the god envoy Xiaosha condensed. She looked at Bai Pu with some surprise and said to herself, at level 5, you have already comprehended the secret? It's actually the rare secret of the mountain. Is this the value of the enhanced warrior template? Suddenly, the face of the god envoy Xiaosha changed again. No, it doesn't seem to be the secret of the mountain. The breath of the steel heart is still changing. Bai Pu, who was in a trance, did not notice the appearance of the god envoy Xiaoshan at all, let alone the muttering of the god envoy Xiaosha. He imagined himself as a mountain, and had already touched the threshold of the secret of the mountain. But Bai Pu always felt that there was still room for improvement. The mountains stand majestically, as they have been for thousands of years, quietly watching the changing winds and clouds. But the mountains are not eternal. The collapse of the mountains is powerful and far more violent and terrifying than the changing winds and clouds. Yes, my secret is not derived from the mountains, but from the power of the collapse of the mountains and the cracking of the earth. Bai Pu took a big step forward, and his temperament suddenly changed, from the static and awe-inspiring like a towering mountain to the terrible natural disaster of the collapse of the mountains. He closed his eyes and swung his sword. Under the attachment of the blood river fighting spirit, the shadow of the collapse of the mountains and the cracking of the earth flashed in the blade. The ground exploded with a bang, and the gravel, dust and mud shot out everywhere, as if a high explosive was buried. Bai Pu opened his eyes and looked at the big pit on the ground. Is this the power of the secret? Compared with my previous special effect of collapsing mountains, the power has been greatly improved. Within Bai Pu's vision, the prompt of the will of the spirit world came. You have comprehended the secret. Collapse of mountains, current mastery level, beginner. When you use the mountain collapse secret during a normal attack, the damage of the attack will be increased by 60%, beginner, and it also has a special effect, collapse, ignoring the target's 30 points of armor. When the damage exceeds 1/6 of the target's total health, it will cause a disability effect. When it exceeds 1/3 of the target's total health, it will cause an instant kill effect. Congratulations on your understanding of the mountain collapse secret. The voice of the God Envoy Zayasha sounded, your potential is indeed extraordinary. You have realized the ultimate secret in your first understanding. God Envoy Zayasha? Why did you appear again? Isn't the divine power limited? Bai Pu was quite worried. What if the divine power stored in Zayasha's body was consumed too much, and in the end he couldn't even teleport back safely? Well, a little bit, it's okay. The attitude of the God Envoy Zayasha towards Bai Pu changed quietly again. That's good. Just now you said the ultimate secret? Are the secrets divided into different levels? Bai Pu asked. The Envoy Zayasha did not keep the secret and explained to Bai Pu. The mysteries are divided into ordinary mysteries, rare mysteries and top-grade mysteries according to their power. Ordinary mysteries are the 4 basic elemental mysteries of earth, water, fire and wind, so they are also called basic mysteries. The characteristics of ordinary mysteries are that the concepts are relatively vague, the increase in the power of the attack is average, and the additional effects are also very weak. There are more rare mysteries, like mountain, stone, gold, sea, rain. These evolved from the 4 basic elemental mysteries are all rare mysteries. Bai Pu thought silently. Rare mysteries sounded more specific than ordinary mysteries, they were all specific things in nature. The divine envoy Zayasha added, the characteristics of rare secrets are clear concepts. Combining with existing natural things, they can not only increase the power of the attack, but also have some powerful special effects. For example, the metal secret can strengthen armor repair and even damage the enemy's armor. The rain secret can make the attack dense and pervasive, making the enemy unable to parry and block. Not many people have rare secrets. After a pause, the divine envoy Zayasha said, of course, the best secrets are even rarer. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.